Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Oregon Village Board. It is Monday, April 16th, 2018 at 5 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and before roll call, I would like to welcome the scouts who are here to observe some of our meeting, and also welcome to the park board who will be participating with us as we go along the agenda tonight. So, ask for roll call for the village board, please.
Foley,
Here.
Boudreaux,
Here.
Bredhauer,
Here.
Carpenter,
Here.
Grenier,
Here.
Jacobson,
Here.
and Staton.
Here, thank you. Item 3 is a warm thank you to trustee Doug Bredhauer for his years of service with the village and the times he's been with us, and we appreciate that very much.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
Doug is a quiet trustee, but when he speaks, he asks good questions, and has good ideas, and has been helpful on the board, and we appreciate that, Doug.
Thank you.
Wish you well in not being on the board. Have fun with more time. Okay, so item 4, it's public appearance. Item A, discussion with Andrew Peterson, Senior Vice President with TDS. TDS will be installing fiber in the village starting in May 2018. So, you want to come to the microphone, please?
I see that everybody has the presentation. Does anybody need paper copies?
I don't think so.
Everybody has it in their packet.
Yeah, we all have it on our laptops, and it's on the
It'll be up on the
TV,
board,
so,
too.
yeah, I think we're all set. Yeah, we're right up to speed.
I like it. Well, good evening, and thank you to President Stanton for putting out the agenda first. We'll try and keep you on pace. My name is Drew Peterson. I work for TDS, which is a communications provider headquartered in Madison on the far west side. We provide service in 34 states, at about 600 communities. We predominantly serve suburban and rural areas. So when you think about Wisconsin, we serve Middleton, Verona, New Glarus, Monroe, places like that, and then across the rest of the country, that's where we focus as well. From the presentation, I'm going to jump around a little bit. I apologize for that. If we could go to the second slide first, I think it makes better. It's titled TDS Next Steps in Fiber Strategy, Why Oregon? Because that's the question that I think all of you would like answered today. So as I mentioned, we operate in a number of communities. 75 of those communities, we have installed fiber optics. So we do considerable network investment, and then we provide 1 gig internet service, which is largely the fastest in the country. And then we do a sophisticated video product. We do a voice over the internet voice product, and we do a commercial voice project as well. As I sit here today, I can tell you that we've run out of communities where it makes sense for us to do that in our existing footprint. I was mentioning on Thursday to Mike and to Jeff, we serve the bottom of the Grand Canyon. We serve islands off the coast of Maine and Michigan. And the economics just don't prove out to be all that attractive. And so you might say, well, why are you coming to Oregon? I would make the case that your incumbent providers have not viewed Oregon as a target market that they want to make considerable additional investments in, and we do. We have seen fiber to be incredibly powerful. We've just done this in Sun Prairie. I know many of you have seen and read about. We acquired actually Sun Prairie's municipal broadband network. We did that in May of last year. Since that period of time, we have built out the entire city of Sun Prairie, which is about 20,000 residents, so a considerably larger community, and we've taken 50% market share in that period of time. We have absolutely swarmed the community of Sun Prairie and really become a community partner with them, and it's proven to be a tremendous success. So as we look at how do we continue to grow our business, we've decided that expanding fiber into adjoining areas makes the most sense for us. So this is a great community candidate for us. We have a number of existing network infrastructure opportunities that are close by that makes it proximate for us. We have marketing, sales scale. We use a pre-sale model to time our capital spend with demand. We target these high growth markets like Oregon, and we see substantial commercial opportunity. So then I would pivot back to slide 1 and say, During our evaluation of communities, and we started with really over 1,000 communities in our footprint, we started to narrow that funnel down, and Oregon became one of 6 local communities that we really thought was attractive to do this overbuild. And you might ask why. I don't think this group needs to know. Your demographics are incredibly strong. We believe you're underserved by your existing incumbents, and we think that products and services available here don't match the needs of the market. We think there's a reasonable build cost to do this here. It's still an expensive capital project, don't get me wrong, but we're confident this is what we do. We are extremely discreet network builders and have a tremendous level of success. So things that we're really looking for from the Village of Oregon is to be welcomed with open arms. We want to be a community partner with you. We want to have expedited permitting. We want to be able to work with Jeff and his team so that we can be as least disruptive as possible to get broadband services out to all your residential and commercial customers within the franchise territory. We want to earn your business as a village. We're going to go after your schools and want to be able to provide service to them. And we want to make this a success. It's important to us to continue this as a growth model for TDS, so therefore we want to make it very successful for the Village of Oregon. I don't think I need to spend a bunch of time on why fiber is important, other than to say the speed is noticeable, the bandwidth is amazing, the reliability is second to none, the security protects your citizens and businesses. Home value increases. You know, you can't imagine how many people that we talk to that say, I'm having a difficulty selling my house because I have inferior broadband, or consequently, I built the house of my dreams and we have terrible internet. We're looking to combat that in the Village of Oregon. Slide 5. We think residents, and we have seen, are ready to adopt fiber and the advanced technologies that come from such a project. Our current plan would be to spend between $9 and $11 million on a capital project, and we bring immediate improvement to the products available to consumers here in Oregon. Increased competition for broadband, video, and voice service. So the products that you'd receive would be 1 gig internet service, and let me start by saying, so that will be our highest speed. Our slowest speed will be 300 meg. So our entry-level product will be 300 meg, our medium soda will be 600, and 1 gig would be our premium. We do, as I mentioned, very sophisticated video service, and I think that's important for the village board to consider. When we absorb new customers, any customers that come from the existing cable provider pay franchise fees, we pay those too. Any customers that we attract from DirecTV and Dish Network do not pay those franchise fees, and we would. And we've seen considerable and marked franchise fee increases in Sun Prairie and really every community where we've provided fiber. We have advanced features, network security, whole home Wi-Fi, 24/7 technical support with local technicians. We have 40 field techs in and around Dane County. We have 3 mobile response units and backup contractors throughout the Dane County area. We have a national help desk with over 300 support techs. So our go-to-market strategy, which is the last slide, talks about how we really want to accelerate this construction in the Village of Oregon. We want to start public announcements relatively quickly. We want to start reaching out to citizens and letting them know that this is coming. We want to do heavy marketing direct to consumers, letting them know about the project and the pace of the timeline. And we want to continue to communicate with the community. We found that that is the most successful way to do a deployment. And so we break up all of the neighborhoods of the Villages of Oregon into fiber development hoods, we call them fiber hoods. And we start campaigns to directly educate those consumers in those subdivisions when we're coming, and then we sign them up. We pre-sign them up. and we go community by, or rather FDH by FDH within the community, so that we can pace our capital spending. But we've found that that is a very, very exciting way to get the community involved. There's a bit of a healthy competition between neighborhoods to see who hits their threshold faster. We do very localized community marketing where we have an actual RV that we can come to neighborhood events. We obviously will participate in community events, parades, other community festivals that you put forward. And so really what we're asking for today, and it's been a different conversation in some other Dane County communities that we're talking to, is really just to have your active support, to be able to work with Jeff and his team so that we can be successful in having permits pulled in a timely fashion. Our intent would be to start middle of May, with the hope that we turn up customers in October. And we like that development approach where we start, people are interested in what are you doing, when is this coming, and then they want to know when it's going to be available. So we try to really accelerate that for purposes of attracting new customers to the marketplace. So we have had just terrific success with this. This is the next in the sort of evolution of our company from a growth perspective. We're going to do 3 or 4 other communities in Dane County this spring, and we would really love for the Village of Oregon to be one of them. So with that, I appreciate I kept it to about 10 minutes. Happy to answer any questions you may have, and really just appreciate your time and your interest.
Thank you for that explanation. So questions?
Could you explain how the physical process of installing the cable takes place?
Sure. So we bring transport from one of our neighboring communities into the Village of Oregon, and then we will go work through neighborhood by neighborhood, and that transport then connects to laterals, which are generally in the back of backyards, and then we will connect customers directly as they sign up as we come from or through the neighborhood. So we'll start by bringing the transport here, that's the connectivity, if you will, and then we'll start to do neighborhood by neighborhood in a real well-paced cadence, to make sure that we're doing it quickly and efficiently, and customers are aware when we're coming to their neighborhood next. Does that answer your question?
I was wondering if you would be using the terraces between the curb and the sidewalk at all? Is it already in the
All
backyard?
public rights of way is what we'd be pursuing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Jerry?
Drew, you indicated that you just are in the process of providing to Sun Prairie. What's the reception been like there?
It's been remarkable. My colleague behind me, Shane West, tells a story that when you see Mayor Paul Esser, he says anytime that there's 3 people on the street in Sun Prairie, one of them's from TDS. We've had great success. As I told you, the build schedule was very rapid. That was a little bit unique. We had to acquire their small broadband network first, which we did. I would tell you we're very happy that you don't have a broadband network from the standpoint of they don't always kind of connect together the best way, but nevertheless, we acquired the network, and then we worked in a real community partnership with Sun Prairie, and from May until October of last year, we spent all of our time building that area out, and I think I mentioned in my opening remarks, we have about 50% of the market, which is nothing short of astonishing. So we've kind of proven out that we're comfortable doing this. And I would just tell you from our perspective, we really want to be successful too, right? Our corporate parent has said to us, there aren't additional companies for us to acquire right now. The market's kind of soft. So how are you going to continue to grow? And we've said we think that fiber will pay dividends in any market where we provide it. And so we have a vested interest as leaders of the company to make this successful, so that we can get more capital from our business partners to grow the company. I would tell you there's 35 employees that work for TDS that live in the Village. That's not uncommon, right? We are a big employer here. We have about 3,500 employees. I think we're the 5th largest non-governmental employer in town. We're not looking to get smaller.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions?
How much is this going to cost the village, or estimates on that?
We don't think it'll cost the the village anything other than Jeff's time, and he's a very busy guy. Our investment, we think, will be between 9 and 11 million. And, you know, generally speaking, we try to be as least disruptive as possible. So I don't think from a cost perspective, you'll see much of an impact. I would say we like to be community investors, so we'll intend to, you know, be a community partner. I don't know, Jeff, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of our questions were answered when we met last week and everything, and I think we expressed a little bit of concern just because of, you know, obviously coming in and installing a new network in neighborhoods can be, not overly disruptive, but it's nerve-wracking sometimes when residents find equipment operating in the easements and everything like that. But TDS has been good to kind of offer, you know, the idea of, you know, we would then be forwarding them to contact them and to, you know, to work
Absolutely.
out some situations with them. If someone has questions, what's going on in my backyard, they've been very supportive in they'll be providing us contact information, people to call. So hopefully that should take some of the burden off of us. And I think it will also take some public education and information out there from our standpoint, just to allow people to know that that's going to be happening.
And we'll certainly trumpet our intent to come to the Village of Oregon. We'll stand up a website that directs people direct to TDS Fiber in Oregon, so they can see precisely what our prices are, when we're coming to certain areas. We'll do door hangers early to say, hey, your neighborhood is next. And just to combat the notion, we do try to be as least disruptive as possible. But I will tell you, I have multiple friends who, you know, sent me pictures of, you know, a ditch witch in their backyard micro-trenching, saying this is the price of technology progress, right? And there was a real fatigue on the part of that entire community based on what they were able to get, right? So we I think, definitely come to the community with an expectation that we're going to try and do this the right way. And I think we have a demonstrated record of success in doing that.
Can you explain how you hook up to the average homeowner? I have cable TV and coaxial cable.
Yeah.
Does it hook up to that, or?
Yeah, so I'm sure I know this is televised, so I'll try and use appropriate words. I'm sure I'm shortchanging the process from my network engineer's perspective. But as I talked about, when we bring fiber transport into the community, then we'll go to those neighborhoods. From the back of the lateral, we'll then come with a micro-trenched, we call them drop, but it's essentially a fiber optic cable that goes from the lateral to the side of your house, or sometimes in your basement, depending if you've got a more sophisticated technology solution. So everything in our network in the Village of Oregon will be fiber, which is amazingly ironic, right? We own 125 telecom companies in 34 states, and the best network that we have is in Sun Prairie, because it's all brand new and fiber. And in each and every other community that we're doing this, it will be the same. So it's incredibly robust, reliable. It limits our maintenance costs dramatically. It is a really sophisticated way to connect, and you'll have a blend of some of your subdivisions are buried, and others are aerial. We obviously like both. Aerial's a little bit more cost effective, but there's a number of subdivisions that have all gone buried, and that's a technology that we're intimately familiar with.
It uses the existing cabling within your home, if you have coaxial.
Oh, yeah,
cable,
once
or-
you get it, well, it can. We also have whole home DVRs and wireless set-top boxes. Yeah. He's the smart guy. Yeah, so Shane West has all of our marketing, sales, and customer operations.
Yeah, so what'll happen is, Drew just explained how we get the fiber optics through the backyard to your home. What ends up happening is we'll put a device on the outside of your home or inside of your home. It's actually about the size of this Kleenex box. It's called an ONT, Optical Network Terminal. And then what'll happen is we'll put that box in that customer's home. And depending on the condition of the wire in that customer's home, we will either use the existing telephone wiring that they would have in, their existing coax, or we would have to put in, if it was in an older home and it wasn't in a condition that we'd like, we would actually put new cabling in there. In general, however, as Drew said, we have wireless set-top boxes. So what happens is, if you think about if you have a DVR in your home, your DVR would be wired to that network box, but video would be distributed wirelessly throughout your home. So we have a preference to use existing wire because nobody likes having more wire fished through the walls in their home, but we will do it if that's what it takes to happen.
We have done it in the past.
Thank you.
Other questions? I would comment that we received a letter from John Tanner at the school district. He's the technology director. I've known John for years, does a good job in support of this also, so I wanted to get that on the public record.
That's great. We didn't even ask for it. But, as you hear from people about the homework gap, I mean, this is a huge
Yeah.
combatant to that. So
Yeah.
without question, I think you're going to see a nice, competitive choice in the village. And that's powerful. People like to have alternatives, and we want to bring you one.
So if I called Mr. Esser in Sun Prairie, what would he tell me about working with TDS?
He would tell you that he likes doing business with us. He wants us to be as involved as we possibly can. I mean, it is really breathtaking when you look at all. I mean, if you watch a high school basketball game, we're littered through the gymnasium with TDS. We've been huge supporters of the Sun Prairie Corn Festival. Boy, I mean, I struggle. We've been involved in every single event that they've had.
I spent a lot of time with Mr. Esser. That would be a great call for you to make. I have no.
Yeah, he's a great
no
third-party
concern about what he
validator.
would say.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, he came to our open house celebration, so it was really great to have the mayor come and celebrate with us. From his perspective, we took a lot off the plate with the city of Sun Prairie. The city of Sun Prairie had decided it needed to make an investment to take that next step from a technology perspective. There was a little heartache because they had kind of wanted to do that themselves. There was a lot of really good community pride, but he would acknowledge we were able to make that build happen much quicker than they were able to.
Okay. So you say you helped with their festival? We have a festival at the end of June too, Summerfest. The chamber director's right there, so.
So we are
ask about
actually.
Judy was not bashful about wanting us to be here. Frequently
We'll figure
spending
it out.
time with the chamber.
We throw candy at parades, and I've thrown candy at the Corn Fest parade in Sun Prairie. We'll have people here in the community, and as Drew said, we have over 30 employees as well.
And I will tell you that, one thing that was unique about Sun Prairie is that they did have that community pride in the network. And what we saw, and they're a city council, we had city council members that were literally doing doors in their subdivision, trying to beat their neighbor to get more people signed up. So that they were able to leverage that community pride to take it to the next level. And, I think Mayor Esser would say what they were able to do in 12 months, it would have taken us 12 years.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Maybe I'm jumping ahead, but I see that as part of the possible direction is locating a TDS pedestal in one of the parks. I'm just wondering, what is that? Like, what does it look like?
I saw that was on the agenda. I don't believe that we had requested that. We have some subcontractors that are doing some network engineering work on our behalf, and so they're looking to set a pedestal in the park. I'm asking.
Andrew, that was the email I sent you. That was that gentleman.
From MyTech?
Yes.
Right. So that would be essentially an appliance that would allow for connectivity to come into the community. And I imagine that was the first one?
Yeah, I don't think that was an ask. I think that was
Research.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So we are already out for bid for the Village of Oregon. We wanted to move quickly, and so we have vendors actually researching where they would put elements in the community.
So a little coincidental from our perspective, but we're glad to see that our contractors are working hard.
Honestly, he gave me the impression that he wanted the village to move on it.
We haven't signed any contracts,
Okay,
so.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's just doing, from our perspective, we heard he was just doing research.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Matt's got,
Yeah.
we should talk about the legal services side of this if we could.
Well, I was just going to ask a follow-up question. Sure. So does that mean that your contractors will be the ones who are kind of working with the village to identify locations and and obtain permits and things of that nature rather than TDS directly? Or who would we be working
both.
with?
You'll have so you'll have a TDS representative. So we do, our core competency is network installation at, like the individual home level. We contract out like the transport build from Fitchburg to Oregon. And then we contract out the laterals. We do the in-home installation from a TDS employee perspective, but the city or the village of Oregon will have a TDS employee specific for all aspects of this build. So that will be the person who, it's his office's number, that the door, when we go to build out a neighborhood, 2 weeks ahead of time, we're putting door hangers with a phone number on every resident's home. That phone number rings to his office. That's the guy who will be responsible for permitting, engineering, and then the ongoing construction during those neighborhoods. So you'll have a TDS employee, not a contractor.
For sure.
Yeah, you'll have to come to the microphone though. We're not going to take a lot of comments from the public. We'll take a couple if we need to. Okay.
Hi, I'm Donna Bradley, and I'm the manager of the Stoughton Alliant Energy Utility. So the question that I have, a lot of your infrastructure will be underground, but there's probably potential that you will need to access our power poles. And I just want to make sure that we have not been informed of this, but we've received calls from customers with individuals out assessing power poles in their backyards. And so I just want to make sure that, I know you have a very aggressive timeline, but also the fact that anytime you need to attach to our power poles, we do have a process in place. And it could also potentially mean that we'll have to change out the current power poles that we have and put in larger power poles. So that, again, we'll have to work in conjunction with everybody to make sure that we're minimizing the effect to the community members and just make sure that we have a very thorough communication plan, so it alleviates calls to Jeff or calls to the Alliant Energy office. So I just wanted to make sure we are a stakeholder in this and that we're given ample opportunity so we can meet the deadline.
Okay, thanks, Donna.
Thank you.
And we would absolutely want to do that. I mean, we partner with Alliant all the time. They actually pull our fiber in many instances. So I think that relationship is a strong one, but we're going to want to maintain that. And absolutely, I think that's, our service goal is going to be as least disruptive as possible, and we'll certainly continue to have that focus.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
Steve?
Yeah.
You mentioned ideally a start in October. Ideally, what is
Last weekend set us back.
Everybody. All of us.
Right.
Ideally, what is the end?
End. When
it's all in.
When all.
So our goal in an ideal world, as Drew said, we're beginning stages of construction late May, early June, depending on weather. We will start installing our first customers in October. And then likely, part of it is a function, each of those, when we look at the map, each of those parts of the community will have a threshold that, once you get to a certain amount of signups, and then we'll construct and start installing customers. Part of it is dependent on that. If it takes longer for a certain neighborhood to hit its threshold, then obviously those customers don't get installed until later on. Our experience in Sun Prairie was never the issue. Customers signed up very rapidly, so we were able to install. We started installing our first customers in Sun Prairie in the middle of September of last year, and the big rush is kind of over. We're still getting customers coming in, but we got to about 50%. It's usually within 6 months. And a lot of that will depend. We'll install customers through the winter. So what'll happen is if ground is froze and a customer wants to order service, or we have an installation on December 30th, what'll happen is we'll put what we call a temp drop. It's a piece of fiber that goes in the backyard from the lateral to the customer's home. We'll bury it in snow until the spring, and then we'll come bury it in the ground thaw.
So the infrastructure will be in by October. All of the infrastructure
All
will
the
be
transport,
in?
yeah.
Okay.
Everything, transport, laterals, everything.
Okay.
We do all of the work except install the actual customer service at their home. before the thresholds are hit. So what happens is the minute, let's say that's FDHDB, FDHDB is 20%. If it's at 19, we'll be building all the way through, and we'll likely have transport will be done, laterals will be done, and the minute that FDH hits its 20% threshold, we'll start calling customers to do installation.
And generally, I think I mentioned, but we've pre-signed them up, and so we've got a direct list that they're calling us, asking, when is it coming, and so that's how we kind of address it. So,
Are there further questions from any place? So we're going to do B as it is?
Yeah, so
with that part?
can Matt explain what he,
Well, I just kind of had a question and briefly on a comment on the legal side.
Yeah, if you could grab that mic, that would be good.
So just if you guys could give me a sense of kind of what's your next step from the village? What do you anticipate you need the village to do? What you'll be asking the village to do? We haven't really started looking at this from a legal perspective. I assume we're looking at permit requests for working in public right-of-way as the main issue. And I know you've talked about franchise fees. We'll have to talk about, how that fits into the picture. I don't know if you want to say anything more about that tonight, but just kind of a heads up as to what you see coming down the pike would be helpful.
Yeah, so we would definitely start with permitting, and then we would pivot to all those other ancillary items that really are behind the scenes and have not proven to be terribly challenging for us. Franchise fees, we remit through Department of Revenue. We do that all over the place. We'll become a statewide video franchise provider. We already are, so we just add the Village of Oregon to our franchise. So that's really efficient. I would tell you that's one of the primary reasons why we've chosen Wisconsin to do this. Other than our brand and reputation, it's really efficient to enter a new community because we passed a statewide franchise law. So consequently, Minnesota, we're doing IPTV expansions, and we have to go municipality by municipality. It's expensive and it's slow. Admittedly, the village board doesn't think about cable franchise fees all that regularly, so just getting on the agenda is part of it. It's not only trivial, but it can just be burdensome. So we love doing business here, and we find it to be really, really efficient.
So we're ready for 4B?
I think all Matt and I are looking for is that if Matt has to spend some time looking at this, that we have the authority to have Matt spend some legal time on it.
So drop the part about the park right now?
Yeah, the park, I guess, is out, we just need Matt's legal services
Okay.
by the board. Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so the motion is to authorize legal services related to TDS project and negotiate, no, just relate, okay, so that's it, so.
I'll second it.
I'm sorry, Jen. So we have a motion and second to authorize legal services related to TDS project. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You're all set.
Thank you all.
Have fun.
Good meeting.
Thank you.
That takes us to item 5, which is a joint meeting with the park board. So Rich, I'll turn it over to you for the call to order.
Okay, we'll call the park board meeting to order.
Brethauer,
Here?
Jameson, Clues,
Here.
Knutson. Here. LeBron,
Here?
Miller,
Here.
Elmore,
Here.
and Sykes.
Here.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna get Rettler on the phone, Steve, because he did not, I told him not to drive here from Stevens Point, so give me 1 second, please.
So for those in the audience and people watching on TV, typically there would be a rep here from Rettler who has done the planning for this park. They're in Stevens Point with 30 inches of snow, so we suggested that they stay there for tonight. So I'm going to read item 5C.
Excuse me, Steve, would you mind if I made a quick announcement?
Yeah.
That's not on there. Just that we want to help us honor Oregon Rotarian Al Miller for all his work and dedication to the community through his his care and passion for Lerner Park. So we'd an invitation to join us on Earth Day, Sunday, April 22nd at 1:30 p.m. at the park's entrance on North Fir Oak. And that will be for a dedication of a new bench. And then also at that same time, we'll have a dedication of the new Lerner Park sign that was put up last year, I believe. So again, Sunday, April 22nd at 1:30 at Lerner Park.
Great, thank you. Yeah, Al Miller has been tireless in working on that park and has a lot of his energy and input and ideas and stuff in that park, so we appreciate what he's done. Be great to show up then to honor him.
Okay.
Ready, Mike?
This here, yep, on the phone.
Okay, you're on.
Good evening, this is Ross and Rebecca. How are you guys?
Good, thanks.
Can you guys hear us fine?
Yeah, you're getting through the
Great.
snow.
Well, first off, I'd just like to thank the boards for the flexibility to do this conference call this evening. With the way the weather has been around here, you know, we had roughly 30 inches of snow, so it's really been a struggle. We appreciate your flexibility here this evening. So,
No problem.
I guess, Jeff, would it be acceptable if I just walk right into more or less the phasing plan as we had put it together?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, please do that.
Okay. I guess the primary goal as part of the phasing plan in working with the committee here was to come up with a more financially feasible option with 3 different phases for your community that would accommodate, keeping in mind it would accommodate both soccer and baseball as part of the development process. So to jump right into it, we'll start talking about what we would do as part of phase 1 of the 3 phases. What the phase 1 design would include would be a new 77-stall parking lot off of North Oak Street. As part of this phase, we would be maintaining the existing bridge structures as they currently exist on site. The primary elements as part of phase 1 from an athletic facility standpoint would be the 2 220-foot Cal Ripken Little League fields, and then the 2 full-size multi-use 210-foot by 360-foot soccer multi-use fields. As part of this phase, what we would also look to do is directly south of the baseball fields, doing a temporary space for soccer as well. From a plaza standpoint, rather than building out the whole entire plaza space as part of the baseball facility, what we would look to do as part of phase 1 would really be just to gravel the area and provide access from the parking facility with an asphalt drive at this point in time. And keep in mind, I'll run through the phases and then jump to the pricing or the overall budgets after the fact. Phase 2, again, we would be looking at doing another addition of roughly 77 spaces off of North Oak Street with another pedestrian access and a new pedestrian bridge directly south of that parking area. We would also be looking at a new 330-foot Babe Ruth field, one 250-foot Pony League field, and then a complete build-out of the plaza space and 1,600 square foot concession restroom facility as part of the baseball facility. You'd also be looking at trail connections to the east, a relocated soccer shed for maintenance equipment, and then your competition 210-foot by 360-foot soccer facility at the east end of the property adjacent to Perry Parkway. Moving on to phase 3. The final build-out would be one 210-foot by 360-foot soccer field, one U10 120-foot by 165-foot soccer field, the addition of roughly 47 spaces onto the existing parking off of North Perry Parkway, a new soft surface play area, and then some landscaping buffers between the residential lots to the north. One thing I'd like to keep in mind as part of this build-out, all the trail systems would be developed and constructed with regards to their proximity to each different phase. To move on to the budgeting as part of the projects, with a 3-phase approach of roughly $3.9 million in construction, phase 1 you were looking at roughly $1.25 million in construction with a 7% contingency. Phase 2 would be roughly $2.09 or $2.1 million in construction with a 7% contingency. And then phase 3, you're looking at right around $506,000 in construction with a 7% contingency. And with that, we'd like to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. So it's open for questions from Park Board. So Park Board, want to go first? Questions or comments that you have?
I had one question about the paths. You said that they would be built and modified as the phases go in. I'm wondering if there'd be any possibility of doing maybe even a temporary pathway so that there'd be connectivity all during construction, or am I misunderstanding what your intent would be?
The overall intention was, so based on the area of impact on the site, we were looking at minimizing impact by just keeping construction in the more or less the areas where we're identifying the phasing. But an option you could possibly have would be to look at, doing temporary gravel or base course around the entire park, and then coming back and paving them later. But I think the way we looked at it was, a build out of pedestrian access based on their proximity or the path's proximity to each phase.
Okay. Yeah, I just think it's kind of important, I thought, to keep that connectivity, because I don't know how long exactly this would all take, if everybody does. And then, so I know there's a lot of walkers and dog walkers that use the park, and it would be nice to just have that.
Hey, Rich, to answer your question, I think the plan and the phasing actually still utilizes the existing paths that are there. Just bringing, like, if you look on the top here, and this path would now be connected to this existing path. And then same from the south, that it would be connected through to the existing paths, so that we were still maintaining those through.
From one end of the side to the other.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
We talked about lighting. Is lighting included in any of these phases, or is that beyond phase 3?
We actually had alternates broken out as part of the overall project budget when we first had estimated the project. We do have lighting built out as part of that, as an alternate. Are you interested in those prices?
Yeah, I guess I'm not seeing it, but
So the three things we really broke out as alternates as part of the projects was irrigation, lighting, and scoreboards as part of the baseball. As part of the baseball facilities and as part of the soccer fields. So you're looking at roughly, from an irrigation standpoint for the baseball fields, you're looking at roughly $30,000 per field, and then $18,000 per field for the smaller Little League fields. And then for the soccer fields, you're around $25,000 a field for irrigation on those. For lighting with the baseball facilities, you're around $220,000 per field, and then maybe $150,000 to $175,000 for the smaller baseball fields. And then for a 4-pole system, just as part of the soccer fields, you're around $145,000 to $150,000. And scoreboards, about $20,000 a piece for the 4 fields. For the soccer fields, would be around $80,000 total. We had broken those out as alternates, so.
okay. So none of that basically is in the cost of phase 1 through 3?
It is not.
Okay, thank you. The other thing we talked about is park equipment. So I think you have $40,000 allotted in phase 3 for playground equipment.
Going back to our budget here. Phase 3, we have the playground area, we have $40,000, a lump sum of $40,000 for play equipment.
Do you know if that would be at least comparable to what's there and some additional equipment? So one of the concerns was just the elimination of the playground equipment and wanting actually more equipment than what's there currently.
I think based on our design, we're currently showing 2 structures, and with a budget of roughly $40,000, that's something, we had looked at doing probably two in-place structures for that.
Thanks, Ken. Other questions? Jim?
It appears that the scoreboards are included in the baseball phases, but not in the final phase, which is just a soccer phase. Is that right?
If I heard that question correctly, we're asking if scoreboards were included as part of the base bid, and they are not included. They are alternates, both out. They're not included.
So they're alternates for both soccer and baseball, right?
I think he's referring to, if you go to page 2 of phase one scoreboard, 20,000, each scoreboard, $20,000, line item 35.
And that's in phase 1, phase 2, but not in phase 3, which doesn't have a
That is
baseball.
correct. The Cal Ripken, yes, the 220-foot field would have a scoreboard, correct. Both of them would. That is correct.
Okay.
Line item 35. So yes, it is included in the budget. I apologize for that.
Questions? Go ahead, Jerry.
If the park board is done, I have a
Yeah,
question.
we'll go back and forth.
Okay.
They're not included within the soccer fields.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I guess this is probably a question for staff, and it's regarding the financing of this project. Could you go over the financing plan a little bit for the viewing public, Mike?
Sure. So the resolution that will be in front of the board tonight would have that the village would borrow the initial $500,000, and then the organizations would raise $500,000, and when that $500,000 is raised, then the village would borrow the second $500,000 for a total of $1.5 million. And when Matt and I drafted the resolution, we're using an approximate $1.5 million because in Rettler's proposals, Rettler does not have design fees, and there's, fees like that. I guess the soft costs. So our resolution includes the hard costs of building phase 1, but also includes the soft costs.
Right, thank you. This is an interesting project because it's a project that'll be used by not just the village residents, but it'll be used by people from the whole area, the way I see it. And I'm all for that because it improves the general health of everybody using that. So can you tell me how this is going to be done so as not to spike the tax levy for the people, the residents who will be paying for it, which are the village residents?
It will be part of the borrowing that the village will do, be part of the village's 5-year capital improvement plan.
Okay.
And I can't sit here and say that it will or will not, increase taxes without, it'd be hard to say with this $500,000 your taxes will go up. It's hard to say.
Right, but I'm more concerned with a spike. So, but that's.
I mean, if this was the only thing we were borrowing, there's more debt falling off in this period than this $1 million we're going to borrow.
Okay, thanks. That's the point I'd like you to make.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
all right, thanks, Mike.
Yep.
And Jerry made the point that there'll be young athletes using these fields that aren't village residents. And there's been some talk, not finalized yet, but that there could be, in the registration fee for those kids outside the Village of Oregon, there could be some additional registration fee to help pay ongoing costs to pay for it and stuff too. But that still needs a lot of discussion and so on. Jeff?
Can you tell me a little bit about how communities come together to fund mutually beneficial projects like the Senior Center or the Oregon Area Fire EMS District? How is that decision made, and then how does that evolve?
You mean how, well, I mean, in both those cases, we have agreement. And so with the fire district, you know how that happens when a capital purchase is made, it has to go to each body.
So it's not specific to, well, so let me restate. So is it possible that knowing that this field is going to get a lot of use from the surrounding communities, that we could approach the other communities and try to create a area field and get the other communities to weigh in with whatever they think their percentage of utilization would be to share the cost of development? Is that something that's possible to do?
Very difficult. Not seen that done anywhere for a facility like this. I think the reason that you see it with respect to, say, fire and EMS services is that townships located in the vicinity of a municipality, they clearly have an absolute need, or they have a need for fire and EMS services that can often best be met most efficiently by contracting with or working jointly with, say, a city or a village that's providing those services, and then participate in that in a cooperative effort. I have never seen that done anywhere with a park or an athletic facility like this, and I think, I'm not saying you couldn't ask, but I think at least two factors would make it complicated. One, trying to figure out how to allocate costs strikes me as pretty challenging. With our senior center, I mean, it's challenging, and we had to develop a system where people have cards, and we have a very sophisticated kind of tracking system to monitor and measure usage. You know, I think that's an example of how it can be difficult, and you need a pretty sophisticated system to really figure out how to allocate those costs. That's one complication. I think another complication is that, you know, a facility of this type is markedly different for a township that is already kind of, for example, at a budgetary point where they don't have any extra money. I mean, the communities that we know about in our area are looking for, you know, how to save money and spend less because they have less. We've seen what happened with respect to, for example, Brooklyn pulling out of the youth or the senior center because they just don't have the money. So I'm not saying you can't ask, but it strikes me as something difficult. I've never seen it happen on a facility like this.
Fair enough.
Other questions? Park Board, any other questions right now?
I guess I just have questions on the subsequent phases. Are we also going to be looking for contributions from, like matching contributions like we are for phase one? I mean, do we start this and never go beyond phase one? I guess that's my concern, is how do we finance subsequent phases?
Yeah, and that has to be determined by future boards. We can't lock anything in right now by saying, okay, phase two, organizations will have to come up with this much money. Because as boards change, things can change, so.
Well, when Matt and I drafted the resolution, we didn't know what to do with that part.
Okay.
And we're hoping that there's momentum, that people will be excited about phase one, and it'll just continue. But we didn't want to, well, we can't commit a future board to do that at this point.
But as far as borrowing, you wouldn't borrow any of those funds for subsequent phases at this point?
No, well, I'm not making that decision, but I would recommend not doing that at this point.
That'd be awful hard to do right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're not in our capital improvement plan at this time, no.
The only thing that's in, when the board sees the updated the capital improvement plan, there's $1 million in there for phase one. That's all we have for the GC Park funds.
Is that a capital improvement plan that comes out every year?
We update it every year. Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Any other questions or comments for our consultant from Rattler? Okay, seeing none, we'll send him back to Snowblower.
Well, Steve, you want to?
I'm sorry, public comments.
Yeah, public
I see
comments.
that, I just checked things off and thought that and forgot
know.
about it, so.
Went too fast.
Thank you, sorry.
No problem. I apologize. I'm a rookie at this, so new to this, so I don't know the proper procedure. Will these?
We need a name and address,
Oh, I'm
please,
sorry,
for the-
Jim Schleck, and I'm with the Oregon Lacrosse Club. I'm the president of the Oregon Lacrosse Club. I was just asking a quick question. Will these facilities be used for other sports besides the ones that are highlighted in the proposal?
Yes.
So you're asking, could lacrosse use the soccer fields?
Yeah, because actually the size of the soccer fields are identical to a lacrosse field. The reason I ask is because we've got about 120 kids using just 2 fields down in Brooklyn now, and the club is continuing to grow at about 20% rate. So I think we've got close to 350 families in it now.
Will you help to raise funds for the park?
Absolutely.
Okay, absolutely.
Yep. So, okay, I just wanted to make sure that it would be used for other things besides what was highlighted
They
there.
actually list soccer/lacrosse.
Oh, they did?
fields
Yep.
that are
Okay,
on
good.
phase one.
All right, I just, the draft I got only had soccer, so I apologize. So I just
Yeah,
wanted to make
no,
sure.
that's a good question. It's good to have people hear that too. And
Yeah.
I mean, I can't speak for the board, speak for myself. I think the board would agree that our priority would be these fields get as much use as possible. We want to build them, have kids there involved in sports, so.
Great, and I'd be happy to contribute the lacrosse goals for free, so.
Okay,
Personally,
good.
so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other public comments at this time?
I see Jamie Bush.
He's back there. You need something from me?
I'm afraid to ask.
Jamie, do you want me to come up and talk about the whole fundraising? Maybe just give are the boards interested about how we're starting to talk about how the framework? Oh.
But if you want to, no, go ahead.
Well,
Whatever you need, he's all
If you not, I mean, we're still working on it, but I mean, if you wanted to just, obviously, important part of this, that's why I'm kidding about lacrosse. I mean, everyone's gonna have to contribute to get to the $500,000, so. So Judy and I and Jamie are starting to talk about how to come up with the parameters of that, so.
We'd be happy to help.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And do you have his email?
Yep.
Okay, good, great. Because we want all the help we can get.
Yeah, that's what it's easy.
Okay, Matt, go ahead.
The only thing I was going to say is that as we see the fundraising effort, that's purely a private effort. The village is not going to be an active participant in that. The purpose of this resolution is to kind of set the stage to say, village board's position is that if the private groups and so on can generate this level of funding, then the board feels that it can move forward with its contribution and get phase 1 off the ground.
Any other public comments at this time? Anything else from the park board?
So I just have one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we've talked about the village contributing $500,000 and borrowing if the clubs or the community can raise $500,000. So that brings us to $1 million. But phase 1's $1.3 million, and then we talked about the things that phase 1 doesn't include. So I'm guessing it goes north of $1.3 million by a little bit. What about that gap?
Well, Mike said that, we do the 500,000, they raise 500,000, then we would borrow the additional 0.29.
So we'll actually do $750
Yeah,
on the community's raise of 5.
yeah, right?
No. I thought that we were saying the village capital improvement plan already includes 500,000. And that if there's an additional 500,000 in private funds raised, then the resolution indicates the board would go to $1 million.
Correct.
That's 1.5.
In total.
In total.
5 total.
5 plus 5 plus 5.
So that gets us 1.5.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
And so that's the hard cost and Matt and my rough estimate of the soft cost to get phase 1 done.
Got it.
Yep.
We have 2,400 kids that use that field. I think we could do it.
If you say we can do it, I have no doubt.
I think we can. Help me out, Jeff.
Yeah, this community has shown the ability to get things done, so,
Yeah.
like this, has been great. Other questions over here? Park board or the public? Yeah, Amanda?
There's one way in the back, too. I don't know if you saw her.
I did.
So I'm Amanda Peterson. I live in the village, 301 South Main, and I'll be on the board tomorrow, but for now, I'm still a member of the public. I'm wondering about water, drainage. Like, I know that there are drains under the field and things like that, but I don't see the topology there, and maybe this was earlier conversations that I missed, but if someone could speak to the steps that were taken to make sure that not only that the fields themselves don't flood, but that surrounding runoff areas aren't also flooding, because I don't want to be back here in 5 years going, we got problems. So.
Is that Ross or
Jeff?
If I heard the comment correctly, I heard there were questions with regards to how we would be draining the fields and also with regards to stormwater management to ensure that any of the water as part of the construction of these phases would be maintained and held on site. We have included allowances as part of every one of these budgets to make sure and ensure that we have the necessary dollars to design and meet the requirements of the state and your local municipalities for stormwater management. That being said, from a drainage standpoint, just from a field performance standpoint, the fields are all designed with under drain systems in them. that would allow for the subsurface water handling to keep the fields in good conditions. We've also included amended soils as part of the design of the fields as well.
So what, excuse me, what does under drain mean?
If I heard the question correctly, what is under drain?
Yes.
Yep.
Under drain, so it's typically what it is it's a perforated pipe put on 35-foot centers running north and south around the radius of so for a soccer field, for instance, it runs north and south. It's 35 feet on center, and it's a trench that goes down roughly 2 feet. It's filled with clean stone and filter fabric, and then a 4-inch perforated pipe is put in that trench, and what that does with the amended soils is it keeps the fields dry and playable. And what we do with that is we connect those into a regional stormwater detention or an on-site stormwater detention facility. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Well, I do have some informational stuff. You're up. Yay! All right, so that'll back up when I'm just sort of saying what I'm saying. This, I have copies for anybody who wants, and those ones can go around. There's 2 different sheets there, so. And then this one I don't have as many copies of, but I have a lot.
You know, while Dan's handing that out, I have just a quick question, Bonnie, maybe for you. So I frequent the downtown restaurants all the time. Maria's, Charlie's, Seniors, all the time, every week. I've never had a problem parking downtown. What do you do with that kind of feedback?
Do you mind, Bonnie, if I? That's a very tricky thing, and that's part of the reason I think, and I should probably say, I'm Dan Donahue.
And Sonny's, I didn't want to leave Sonny's out.
One of my
And Ziggy's while I'm at it, yeah.
But with all the restaurants, I think there's a couple things going on with regards to perceptions of parking. I think all the restaurants are hurting from it because there's not enough spots. And it's not necessarily seen in people who are already going, but it's seen in people who don't come to the village because of it. We've had pretty consistent feedback across all the businesses that I've talked to, from Pizza Pit, Soleil Spa, Charlie's, Sonny's, ourself, Bergie's, Gerlach, the barber, the accounting firm. I talked to every single business that was within a block of the Jefferson Main Street, Janesville intersection. And I got a lot of feedback that some places are losing customers or clients because they have mobility issues, and they're coming and looking for parking that's close enough for them to get to where they're going and not finding it and having to cancel appointments, and places are losing business because of that. We have a lot of, and it's anecdotal, so I don't want to suggest it's not. But a lot of people saying, like, we've had a lot of people come into our new Sun Prairie store and say, went to the Oregon store, but parking is such a pain, it's easier to come here. Now, that tends to be from people who live closer to Sun Prairie, too. So I don't think there's people driving from Oregon to Sun Prairie just for that reason. But especially with the restaurants, we pretty consistently hear about people coming down on the busy nights and looking for parking, not finding it, and driving away. And one important distinction that we've sort of become aware of there is the difference between somebody going out to eat who's from Oregon and someone who's coming into Oregon as a destination. So the people from Oregon are a lot more flexible and a lot more willing to look for parking. They know where to look around. They know how to get around. The people from outside of Oregon, not so much. Like Judy did some great work just getting with the parking lot of the church on Elm Street made available as public parking when there's not church services. And that is wonderful. That will expand capacity. But right now, there's no way to know to get there, and they're walking from there to the downtown businesses. You run into lighting issues, how to get there, and things that out-of-town residents would run into and sort of go, maybe I'll go over to Stoughton, I'll go over to Verona, I'll go over to Fitchburg. Part of the benefit of doing a study like Mike has suggested is we want to try to get more scientific answers to those questions. We want, because I think there is some honest discussion around it.
is there a parking problem all the time? Is there a parking problem just at certain times? Is it a perception of a parking problem or a real one? And how does it actually affect the businesses? And I think Vanderwall or, you know, any appropriate group could get some metrics that are not anecdotal. I looked through a couple parking studies that other villages have done, and it's very common that they'll be able to assess how many people are coming or not because of different parking situations, the impact. But what we're proposing sort of today, so some of the current parking issues that we've identified or that were brought up in the surveys is finding a spot. If there are any more applies to weekend nights and times like that that are busier. Number of spots to support businesses and residential needs. So the first handout I sent around is basically, it's two-sided. The first side that says downtown parking spaces. And so this is, of course, there's a question of what you define as downtown. What's walkable, what's reasonable. So this is, I took 3 different tacks on this. The first is what most of the business owners consider reasonable parking. We're talking about it within a one block of downtown, of the sort of the exterior bounds. So down to Elm Street, over to the railroad tracks, back to Grove Street, to Spring Street, to Janesville, up to Elm. It's circled on the map that I put in the packets. And I should have it up here. So it's kind of, you can see in green is the optimal parking area, blue is public parking lots, dark green is usable but needs some work. In that, I counted 275 spots in that area. Then if I get a bit more generous, I take Randy Glish did a great survey of serving downtown. So we had a couple discrepancies as to how many spots were in a given spot. So if I just go with his numbers, add in the private parking, because that is available parking for patrons of those businesses, we end up with 337 spots. If we include the UW Clinic, it goes to 380. On the opposite side of that paper is all the residents and employees of downtown businesses. So average number of employees per shift, and for apartments or whatever they are, I basically use the zoning code. If it's an efficiency, I counted 1 car. If it's a 1-bedroom, I counted 1.5. If it's 2-bedroom, I counted 2. Or 2-bedroom or more, I counted 2. And we add up to about 337.5 spaces needed just to support, for the support staff downtown, versus, on a generous side, 380 available. So we're leaving about 42 spots available for all the businesses to share. When you look at someplace like Charlie's on Main, which I think has 85 seats, the zoning code says for every 3 seats you assume a parking spot. So Charlie's alone would eat up the available parking per the zoning code, looking at 34 spots just for that. So those are the numbers we found in terms of just trying to get some raw data for what the situation is downtown. But we didn't want to stop there. We do want to be partners in this, and we don't want to be just coming and complaining. We know the solutions to this are hard. I'll come back to that. Where there's so many factors that go into this. A couple of the things we've come up, we kind of approach this from a 6-month to 1-year angle, a 3 to 5-year angle, or a 1 to 5-year angle, and then a 10-year angle. The farther out it gets, the more nebulous it gets, obviously. Our immediate thoughts are that some of the problems are just around identification of parking, like the village lot as a public lot can be hard for someone from out of town to even find the entrance to, because you have to turn on the spring and then turn in. So if we had parking signs, the blue with a white P on it, or whatever, a standard parking sign on the public lots, hey, that's where the parking is, and some directional signs as you come into the village pointing to the different lots and the different parking areas, and street signage saying this is legal parking, that would help a lot, because there's a lot of street parking that is available that people, I think, don't realize is legal parking, either because the spots aren't specifically marked, or they just think, it's downtown, I can't park on the side of the road, or something like that. So getting everything marked appropriately, just so people know where parking is, and as part of that, putting wayfinding from the parking to where people are going. Right now, we have some signs up like that, but they're a little bit, like one says UW Health and points this way, and I don't know that we need business-specific signs. I'm more thinking, just going, if you park by Oregon Bowl and you're trying to get downtown, maybe a couple signs that say, hey, go this way, you're there. Just to help people who are from out of town find their way around. And that's the number 4 too, the change and remove existing wayfinding signs to be less business specific. Installing lighting for poorly lit quarters, like the Elm Street lot is a great lot. The lighting on South Main between Elm Street and Ziggy's is not great. I know if I was from out of town and I wasn't familiar with it, I'd be looking at it going, oh, do I want to walk up that? And I know Oregon's perfectly safe, but just if I was unfamiliar with the area, I know I'd have those thoughts. So maybe some lighting, adding some lighting in some of those areas to make the corridors a bit more lit. But we do need to factor in, like Elm Street is a residential street, so we have to be careful about encouraging too much traffic on that street. I don't want to upset the people who live on that street or cause disruption to them. Paint street lines for all on-street parking. Basically, if it's a spot, make sure it's marked. We're going to work together as a downtown business group to approach on our own, independent of the village, to approach Primo Harris and UW Health about after-hours use of their lots for public parking. I know they have not been enthusiastically receptive to that idea.
Yeah.
But I think if the businesses approach them, I hope maybe we can get a different result, or at least get some movement on that. Develop a process for deliveries before it becomes a problem. So we know some delivery trucks, we've talked about this to death. We know some delivery trucks aren't going to fit. Most will, some won't fit into the new lot behind the South Main businesses. We should probably develop a process for how we're going to handle the bigger semis before they get here. Just because the other day we had 3 semis at one time. So we had 1 on Jefferson, 2 in the lot. They were going to different businesses. And I was looking at it going, how would this work if they all had to be on Jefferson right now? So we'll want to, before that happens, we may want to develop some procedures for that. Exploring parking timing, 2-hour limits, 15-minute limits, 30-minute limits, things like that to prevent people, to make sure there's turnover in the spots. Parking meters, which both encourage people not to stay longer than they need to necessarily, as well as generating revenue. So those were some of the things we had come up for the 6th month of 1 year. None of these are, of course, locked in stone by any means. It's our starting point, and we really welcome discussion from everyone about what we can do to improve this. And then just because it's really quick to go over, the 1 to 5 year plan, the 2 things we had, additional parking lots would be great. The question is where. And then moving forward, making sure that we're just responsible with new development, that if we put up, a big building, that we make sure that it's not going to add to a parking issue. I'm not saying that anybody should be responsible for fixing it themselves, but that it doesn't exacerbate the issue. And then 6 to 10 years, at that meeting with Mike Slavny and everyone, the idea of a parking ramp came up long-term, mainly because of the fact that we can't build outwards, we can only build up downtown. So if land becomes available, we may want to look at a parking ramp, in the next 10 years. That's not cheap. The latest estimate I saw was $23,000 a stall. So we know that's not cheap, but there's also increased tax base coming out of downtown, so there may be a way to fund that. And that our other concern is just, so we've got some issues now, and Oregon is at a prime spot to start to be a destination for people, to really start attracting people from other communities. It is already attracting people from other communities. And we just don't want to create an experience where people don't have a great experience and then we lose that opportunity to draw people in. So I think that's about everything I had to ramble on about. Some of the things for the parking study that we thought of in terms of ideas, the number of spots the zoning code would require versus what there actually is, the number of spots available, definition of what is downtown, assessment of how far people will walk or how hard people will look for parking before leaving, looking at mobility issues and accessibility, given our population and just, the nature of some of the businesses downtown. And I mean, what this all gets down to is how much parking do we need to support optimal business? And I should have said more on that, business and residential conditions. This is, when we're talking about Elm Street, it's people visiting people as much as it is a business issue. And then as we get into it, the impact of the new hotel is going to have. We're going to have a 40 room or 60 room?
60.
60? Room hotel coming in, and I would hope we could get most of, the people staying at the hotel to come into town to eat and to visit the businesses. But that's a lot of additional cars from in town coming in. If it's full, that depends on that. So, but making sure we're ready for all those. We've got a lot coming towards us in terms of growth, and we want to make sure we don't go into that at a deficit. So that's what I've got. I don't know if anybody else who's here from the businesses wants to.
I would just say, I can use the mic if you want, but I shout pretty
Okay,
loud.
we would like you to come to a microphone, please.
It wasn't that far a while.
I'll be sure and get you on TV.
So I just wanted to address what you said, Jeff, about you come all the time and there's never a parking issue.
Yeah.
I have the benefit of being at Charlie's every Friday and Saturday night, and I'm down in the Speakeasy. That's not a plug. But I'm down there every night. And I also have the benefit of having a huge amount of our customer base at Charlie's being existing customers from Liliana's. So a lot of the people who come to Liliana's, yes, some come from Oregon, but a lot of them also come from the Fitchburg area, from the Madison area, and the name of Liliana's has brought them to Charlie's in the first place. And I have so many times people who come down to the Speakeasy who say, we've come here multiple times, and it's just been so busy we couldn't find a parking spot. We decided to go over to Wendigo or whatever down in Stoughton because it's a familiar place. So I think because you guys live here in the area and you're really familiar with it, it's just like I know a lot of people who say, the Beltline traffic is horrible. Well, for me, it's not. I work when it's busy, So for me, when I go on the Beltline, I'm always going exactly 55 miles per hour whenever I drive on it, and never over. But I always go 55 miles an hour on the Beltline, and I never have an issue or a problem with it. But again, it's because I know when it is. If you, even though you say there is an issue, come to Charlie's at like 7 o'clock on a Friday night, which is our busiest time, and you can't. So I've asked my staff to start parking, not in the parking lot, and they've been doing, for the most part, a good job. It's harder on the really bad weather days because, they're walking, across Jefferson and all the way down to try and find some parking spots. And because the parking lot is under kind of disrepair right now, a lot of those spots aren't really defined either. So I guess my only response would be, yes, because you live here, I think is why you don't see a problem, because you know when to go downtown, you know when the times are. But I have so many times from people who are coming in, and I love Oregon, I really do. Like, I have my things and whatnot, but like my biggest, I think one of the biggest hurdles that Oregon faces is that although we have like an amazing coffee shop and a really cool speakeasy and main tap and stuff like that, a lot of the businesses that are in downtown Oregon also exist in Stoughton or in Madison, and some of the unique draw points that Stoughton might have, or Fitchburg, even if it's something like a Walmart or they've got that in Stoughton, they've got the Cinema Cafe, they've got the Opera House, they have things that draw people. One of the things we've struggled with Oregon is that there aren't enough things that pull people here. So we want to have more reason for people to want to come here, and I think one of the biggest challenges for us has been the parking, and it's been feedback that I've been getting from tons of customers who've come in. So just to address that. Anyone else have questions for me? No?
Thanks, Jeff. Dave?
Hey, you're welcome, you guys.
Yeah, come on up.
I'm Kurt Kneifel, and I'm the barber, right in the view of everything, and I think timing the lots, or timing the parking stalls would be important. There's a lot of dead wood that stays there too long. I'm afraid about parking meters. I think that'll chase people.
Yeah, there's definitely a concern. We don't want to scare people away by charging.
Right, but there's cars that are parked in the parking lot that never leave. There's one sitting out here right now that hasn't moved in 3 months. There's more of them that sit there for 2 and 3 days at a time. That's parking those cars gotta get towed if they're dead. And the parking for how far you wanna walk, I can ask everybody on the board, where'd you park tonight? 2 blocks away or right out close? That's the way the customers are. I got customers that won't park in the lot because they can't get across the street and they can't go all the way down the light to get there. They're older. Now, I don't know when you guys say you never have a problem finding the parking, what time of the day is that? Because right now, the parking lot out here with the new complex out there, the apartments that are going up, there's probably not more than 5 parking stalls there most of the day. I'm watching it. I see it all day long. I got a perfect view. And I don't know how we're gonna generate, but I don't know if the apartment complex, how many parking stalls do they have for that 60 units? I read 90, but I've heard 60 only.
There's 61 units going in, and each have their own underground parking space.
One or two or what?
One per unit.
So there's 60 parking stalls. I was told 90.
underneath, but there's,
Yeah.
There's 60 underneath, and then there's some additional parking on the above
15 or
ground.
20.
Yeah, some surface parking, I don't remember the number.
Okay, so what about the 1 bedrooms that got 2 people living in it? The 2 bedrooms we're almost gonna guarantee, so the overflow from right now, with the parking that's missing over there now, is why the lots out here full all day long.
So
I
to
just
answer
don't
your
know
question, where did I park? I parked right out here. When I come downtown to eat, I park out here and I walk.
Okay,
I
well.
do that because I want to be sure I don't take a spot where somebody might go to Charlie's.
Okay.
No, I don't want to take a spot.
But I mean,
I don't
the-
mind walking ways, it's healthy and that's what I do.
I don't have an issue either.
Probably Jeff
but
will do that too.
I walk from home at the bottom of Bergamot Boulevard in CC.
Yeah, good for you. Made me look bad though.
Not yet. I
According
will
to
be
what he
walking
said
from the
about
top
how
of
far
Bergamot
the average
Boulevard.
person will walk for a business is 100 feet.
Yeah, there are some studies that'll show
100 feet.
it's remarkable how little people are willing to walk.
That's why malls were popping. You could walk in the door and you're inside to all the stores. You could just walk.
So
I don't know.
a question I have, and I don't know what the answer is, and I'm not trying to be difficult on this, but I'm on Willie Street a lot. My son has a bike shop there by Batch Bakery. Right across the corner, kitty corner, Howlong Bay Thai Restaurant. It's rated one of the best in Madison. You know how much parking they have? None. You go down Willie Street, and I haven't walked it to check, and I have to watch the road a bit when I drive, so I haven't checked for sure, but I know Lazy Jane's Cafe has a little bit of parking. Most of them have absolutely none, and they're busy.
What's the age group there?
Most are younger than I am.
I'd
Which
say
is
a
your
lot
point.
in there. I'd say I'm going
Yeah.
to be in their 20s and their
Yeah.
30s. They're bikers and they're walkers. A lot of them are university people.
Yeah.
It's a different culture.
Yeah, we're not going to have enough parking downtown for people with mobility. We have 8 establishments for eating and so on.
We don't have enough parking.
It's just not going to happen.
Period. I
for
don't
people
have
to
a
walk.
lot of answers, but I know part of it is that the police, maybe to try to enforce some of the laws that are there, the 2-hour parking, I think, isn't there something in the parking lots? How many hours can you stay there without moving?
There's not in the parking lots right now.
The public ones? I thought there was. So if there's a dead car sitting there for 3 months, it's good to go.
Well, someone would need to notify us because we're not patrolling the parking lots and marking tires to see
It's
how.
parked
long
right in the front. It's a red Ford SUV, little one.
Okay.
It sat there for 3 months. Everybody drove by it. The cops have parked next to it. It hasn't moved.
No, they have no way of knowing that, Kurt, so you can't criticize them for that.
I'm just saying, if you drive by and you see the same car parked in the same parking lot and it's right on the street, I don't know if we're supposed to call you up and say a license number this and say it's been sitting here for a week. I thought there was
That'd be
something that they-
fantastic if you did that.
Well,
Absolutely.
I can do that.
Perfect. Then we'll take care of it.
Okay.
Yeah, be in touch.
I thought there was a 72-hour thing or something that if they didn't,
We have to be notified. We don't drive around and look at cars all day long to see how long they've been parked there. That's just not something we're capable
how do
of
you
doing.
monitor the 2-hour parking then?
On the streets?
All the larts down here are 2-hour parking.
Whenever we can. And I guess that brings up a great point because
Well, we used to be able to call, but we don't even have the cards anymore to put on a windshield.
that brings up a great point though. Is it Kurt, is it?
Yes.
If the police department's going to enforce these time limits that you guys are talking about doing, a 1 hour, 2 hour, 50 minutes, whatever it is, then we're probably gonna have to hire what's called a CSO, a community service officer, to help us do that stuff. And I just ran the numbers quick. If I do that, if I hire a part-time CSO, 20 hours a week, at $15 an hour, that's $15,600 a year to do that. Plus, we're gonna be ticketing your customers. They're probably not gonna like that either.
Well,
Or your employees. I don't know.
right, well, yeah, I've gotten the ticket since the loading zone went in, and I was like, I need to go pay this. I certainly can't complain. And it was valid. I was in the loading zone for about 25 minutes. So, but it's happening now. We're seeing compartmentalization downtown already, where the private lots are getting very strict. They're putting up as many signs as they can, and they are instantly towing anybody who parks there is not at their establishment, which I think is, which is up to anybody who, with their land. But it's taking people off, and some people, it's cases where they don't realize it's not a public lot, maybe it's next to a hitching post or something like that, and they're getting towed, and then they're really upset, and I mean, that's a lot of the issue, right? So we've got a map of downtown and there's no open space. So we know we can't just build a new lot. But we need to figure out some measures that, if we're gonna say that the parking needs to be further away, then we need to support that with signage and with lighting, with all the different things that will enable that to be valid parking. And then within the existing parking, I do see value in posting time limits, even if there's not time to patrol for it.
But you gotta do it a little.
Right, there
Because the
needs to be
tickets
some
work.
patrol.
The
And
tickets
some of that's
piss them
partnership,
off, and
too.
they start to read the sign. There's signs all the way across our little strip there. There's, I think, 8 or 9 parking stalls. There's 2-hour signs all the way across there. They park in front of them. And they sit there, and they sit there, and they sit there. I'm not in a big situation because my customers don't have to stay there that long. And in 10 years, I'm gonna be gone probably. So I'm just trying to help businesses in the future, because the more we prosper for the businesses here, as far as with employees, the more parking stall shortage we're gonna have. Now, alls is if you monitor it a little bit and you can move the parking better, at least people can get in and get out. I mean, I got customers that say they gotta park up by Elm Street to get a haircut, but it is on the busier nights and nobody's dying, they're younger. But I got people that say they don't stop because they didn't know where to park. Now, if we have to hire somebody for $15,000 a year, how much is each business losing? I mean,
I don't know. And how much more are they gonna lose if we start ticketing their customers and they don't like that and go away?
well, it just depends on how long it's gonna take for them to get here or get and find out.
I'm not saying for sure that they're gonna do that. I'm just saying they're probably not gonna be happy if they're getting tickets, so.
Well, here,
A lot of them are repeat offenders, so maybe we don't need those because they're not coming in anyway.
Well,
I see a lot.
And maybe it's employees, I don't
It's
know.
renters in some cases, a lot of them, because they have a tendency to.
I can tell you that we enforce it as much as we can. And sometimes, you know, if it's 2 hours, then we gotta go chalk the tire, then we gotta wait to make sure that they haven't moved, right? So it takes a little bit additional time. But you're right, if we're gonna start doing these things, we're not, as a police department, staffed enough to be able to monitor that all the time. We're gonna have to hire someone to do that.
I get it.
Yep.
But I think the only way we're going to create more spaces being available, because we don't have anywhere to go.
You know, I want to say that I do really, really appreciate the downtown business owners and the way that they've come together over the last few years that I've been on the village board, and really they've come at every single challenge that's come our way. The downtown business owners have come at it from the perspective of how can we partner to create a solution, and I personally really appreciate that perspective, and I feel that right here, right now. As I'm going through my mind, you know, I'm not a big reinvent the wheel guy. The things that I do, I try to look for models elsewhere and see what they've learned along the way. I would really encourage you to reach out to the Monroe Street Chamber of Commerce. I know that they've had problems with Upper and Lower Monroe Street, and it's the exact same issues. There's no parking on Monroe Street for those businesses. I'd encourage you to reach out to Sun Prairie. Dan, Sun Prairie had a real issue trying to get people to come back into downtown because there was no parking, and the parking that there is off-street. So if you're not from Sun Prairie, you didn't know how to get there. And then there was some other issues with regard to snow removal, but they did a huge initiative to try to bring people downtown Sun Prairie, and I think it's been very successful.
Yeah.
Willie Street's another one. I'm sure there's some chambers in Madison. I don't think this is unique to us.
Right,
And
well,
I know the solution is in here somewhere. I have a sense that it doesn't involve building more parking, because otherwise you wind up with just a gigantic parking lot with 4 restaurants. But maybe it does involve adding some, and I think probably as I read through your list, my guess is it involves a little bit of all of this, and maybe a couple of things that we haven't thought of yet. But I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation.
Right, and I think that's the key. Is what I think Mike's idea is that by engaging, as a parking study, we can look at what other areas have done that have faced similar challenges as us. We can make sure we don't reinvent the wheel, and we can make sure. This is just the businesses speaking, and this hurts me, but I don't want to do things at the expense of residents in the area too, where suddenly there's people parking in front of their house all hours of the day, and or I don't know what the issues might be, but I don't want to create an issue for residents by turning a residential area into parking for the business area. So I think doing that study and finding out what other areas have done and what Vanderwall would recommend. They know us very well. They know Oregon very well, and so what they'd recommend based on that, I think, is a really good way to go forward.
So that's a good segue to item 6. And I'd be willing to make that motion.
Okay, I want to see if more people want to talk, Jeff. So, Kurt, are you okay to relinquish for somebody else?
I just got one comment to
Yeah.
the gentleman there.
Jeff.
Jeff. You talk about some of the places. Stoughton had a pretty decent downtown, and their parking is an issue, and they're solving it because they're going out of town. They're growing out around. They're building everything on the
I
outside.
think Stoughton's another good community to go and look at. Because
But they're not-
I heard Chef Dave
They're
talk
going
about.
out, though.
I've heard Chef Dave talk about Wendigo. I've been to Wendigo. I've been to the Coffee Cup. There's another restaurant that's a really good restaurant right across the street from McFarland State Bank. I will go to Stoughton and I will go to those restaurants, but I promise you I'll walk 4 blocks to get to them. And so again, not that that's a perfect situation, but it's another community that's struggling with this. And I don't know what the solution is, Kurt. But I know it's in here somewhere.
I
It's
think
in this room
it's-
somewhere.
We just have to try to manufacture what we got and keep it moving, but I think that shorter hours to move the parking.
That's probably part of it.
Thank you.
I mean, it's more, it's
Kurt?
definitely more in the daytime.
Need to
than
wrap
it's-
it up, okay?
Okay, I'm done.
Thank you. So is there someone else who would like to address the board with some new comments? I think we've received a lot of information. Amanda?
Amanda Peterson again. So I love this. I love the ideas that came out of this, and I don't want to speak for everybody in like the South Main neighborhood, but I think we can work with this. And I've thought of other ideas too, such as having designated senior parking or things like that, or maybe a drop-off area for families that go out, so only one person has to walk those 2 or 3 blocks to park the car. I mean, there's a lot of good ideas. I think it's great that this is happening, and I think that my neighborhood would be open to a lot of options. So that was
Thank
just
you.
a comment.
Anyone else? No. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Francisca Anderson. I own Pivotal Point Acupuncture and Wellness Center, just on Main Street here, right next to the Firefly. I heard the comment about mobility, and I know that you said that we don't have enough parking and probably won't for mobility. That's my population base, and I don't know what to do with that comment. Danny Ham Chiropractic, he has mobility people. The yoga studio, they have a lot of population where they do chair massage or chair yoga. I have people that come from Chicago to come and see me here in Oregon, and they have anxiety about finding parking. And from Chicago.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, I'm not opposed at all to more handicap parking, but if we do that, there's less parking for other people too.
Right.
So, and it's a complex set of issues that are in there.
Yeah.
And we have, basically 8 restaurants in a very short amount of space, plus other businesses.
Right. I just
And
don't want to be
there's
forgotten
just not
about
a lot
it.
of on-street parking.
Right.
So we're
Right.
making note of this stuff, and we'll look at
It makes me
too.
feel like I'm not a part of the community.
No, I was not trying to say that. I'm just saying it's a significant problem, just because there just aren't a lot of parking spaces right in front of businesses downtown.
I have 1,500 people
Yeah.
as patients,
Yeah.
so it's significant. That's significant for a clinic.
Yeah.
So I have 2 other independent contractors who also work with me. And so every single day we have comments about parking.
Yeah.
So I wish we would come up with a solution. I know we talked about at the staff meeting about moving the band shelter or something like that, but it just makes me feel like I need to move.
No, I wasn't trying to imply that at all. I'm saying it's a significant problem to make that happen downtown.
So Steve,
I think there are solutions. I think Dan's proposed some good ones. I would comment from when I was at that meeting on March 8th, which Mike said was a very good meeting. I agree with that also. And I have to say, there's a part of me agrees with the idea that we don't have a parking problem downtown. There's room to park most of the time, but we have a perception of a parking problem, which is the same as it being a real parking problem, because people don't know where to go. They'll go down South Main, it's full, and they leave, and there's a lot of parking over here. So that's part of it too, I think, that the perception that there's a parking issue. And I know after that meeting, that pushed me to take an even harder look at downtown parking and get something done about it.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
Sorry.
one thing that's my fault, that I forgot to mention on the suggestions of signs was, this came up a couple times, was having dedicated, senior, not handicap, but senior parking or family parking, a couple spots like that to, maybe not legally, but at least.
I was gonna say, we can't
Yeah,
enforce
yeah, I
this.
know you
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
enforce that, but to, just responsibly, responsible citizens policing themselves kind of thing. This is supposed to be a senior parking spot, like I see expected mother spots at the supermarket, but fair enough, most people respect them. So something like that, and for a couple spots around, especially where there's concentrations and clusters of the access to mobility. So like having 1 or 2 on each side of the intersection, so people aren't having to cross the intersection and things like that. I didn't want to forget that
So,
suggestion was
and
there.
there's some good hope for the future too. You're talking about that 1 to 10 year range. I know that one of the proposals that Mike Grace brought about the central campus plan would move the village administrative offices and open 25 additional parking spots in the process.
again, that's conceptual. I mean, you have to take and see if you're actually gaining parking spaces when you,
Conceptually,
conceptually.
as we looked at the central campus plan, which is in action right now, and the city administrative offices is part of that, we have potentially the opportunity to open up extra parking spaces just by reconfiguring
The lot.
how Village Hall lays on this lot right now.
Yeah. What I was going to say in response to the comments is that you brought up about the need for handicap parking. So Jeff and the chief and I, we took a walk last week, Thursday morning, the only nice day of spring so far. We did that. And Jeff's going to show you where we actually are going to come back with a proposal to add handicap parking up along, basically it's next to the,
On the tree line.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
We think we'll probably lose 1 parking space, but it'll create 2 accessible places probably in this area that are nice and close to this ramp and.
That would be really appreciated.
And also kind of, central, because I think that came out of our discussion
Yeah,
today.
I appreciate
I
that.
think that's a good idea.
Sorry for crying.
It's fine. And then,
I love being here. I got myself through a lot of different things with being in business, and this is like very frustrating to be here for 10 years, watch the growth, and then it's almost starting to backfire in a way. And I know we can do something with this. I know that. It's just, please be open about this, So thank you.
yeah, I think the board is open. I think Jeff kind of nailed it. There's much more of a partnership in talking about this now than there was a few years ago. And that's how things get done, and it doesn't burn bridges, so. David?
Sorry, last thing. Would it be, sorry. Dave Heidi, Charlie's on Main. would it be possible to do just all of the all the stuff that's like the stuff that's really visible for the average person coming from out of town, to make all of that just 2 hour and not have any longer than that? So like if the community lot, the lot behind Charlie's, all the stuff that was on the street, and even the stuff that was the really easily accessible Main Street, if we made all of that 2 hour parking, then, and we just had our staff who do know their way around, and we had our, you know, the people who live in the village move out, it would mean that, I mean, pretty much every consumer who comes into Oregon does their business within 2 hours. And I know that there's the enforcement part of it, but
I
at
just
least.
want to get assurance from you that if we do that and we enforce it, that we're not going to get any complaints from the businesses
Well, I
or the
think-
patrons.
Well, I don't think that'll happen at first. I can't promise that. No, but I mean, even if it is, you know, I mean, we have customers who do come in and they've been at their stall they've been dining for a little over 2 hours, like 2 hours and 20 minutes. I don't think those are I mean, they're like, I have to go move my car. And I'm like, it's okay for 15 minutes. But I think really just to at least try and curb like employees parking in the public lots, to curb the, to just get the average consumer being able to find a parking spot, I think might really help. And again, if it was just the Jefferson Street and the South Main Street, and you know, even the couple spots in front of Janesville, I mean, that's not making it easier on me. I have to walk farther too, but I don't mind if it means that. One of the things that's hard for me, I do park in the, I mean, don't tell BMO, but I park in the BMO lot, but don't tell them. And it's a good thing this isn't public record, because I whispered it. But I park there because I don't want to take away spots from my customers, right? The problem is that even when I've had all of my staff park outside of that lot, it just gets filled up with other people's staff or other, I mean, that lot is completely full every single time I'm there.
My
minus a couple.
second point I was to make when we were doing our tour was we're talking about the handicap parking. And then the chief and Jeff and I are going to suggest to the village board that, kind of following your point, that if we initially start with 2 hour parking on on Jefferson Street, and then we have to make sure that the signage that's on South Main Street is all consistent. We, at this point, don't think we want to do 2 hour parking initially back here. I kind of look at this like high school parking, Steve, you know, when you kind of, you do a block, and then you kind of maneuver it. You know, at some point, we may have to do 2 hour parking over here. But I think our goal is to get the business owners and the employees out of the Jefferson Street parking lot, get them hopefully to park over here or on the street or whatever, disperse them, and then see if we need to put 2 hour parking up here. I mean, we just have to keep, you know, sort of playing with that.
Well, I think even without just the, I'm sorry for interrupting. I thought you were done.
I was
Sorry.
going to say, and the Village Hall employees have been parking on the street for the last 2 months already. And actually, there is some additional parking in the lot now during the day. I'm not saying at night. I know the comment at the meeting was that it's usually at night. But during the day, there's available parking now. You know. I'm sorry.
Well, I think I think the thing about the 2 hour thing, though, is that it is a lot of people who are residents, and especially once that apartment building opens up, if it's not a 2 hour parking lot, we will have literally no parking
And that's what we're
ever.
going to wait till the apartment's done and the lot's done before we start doing this. But yeah, our idea is to start that, make sure the signs on South Main Street are consistent, and then sort of keep just moving it and see if we need to add additional parking signs.
I just want to mention, because I hear a lot about that new apartment building coming up, and so who's not represented here are the residents. So as we start thinking about what's 2 hour and what's not, let's not forget there's people that live here downtown. And also, you know, as we talk about this new Jefferson Crossing apartment building, I really want us as a community to be welcoming to these folks. These are 60 people at the very minimum that could walk to your restaurant and not have to park. So I think that the project, if you just look at the project from the lens of parking, we've gone back and forth on it, but if you look at the project from the economic impact on the village, I think it's a huge boon, and I just don't want to forget that when we talk about Jefferson Crossing.
Well, I don't either, but they are already using our parking spots, though.
Well, they
You know
don't
what I
live
mean?
there,
Like-
though.
No, but I'm saying so the 61 spots for the 61 units, and then they have another 20-some surface, but then that's not even counting like their friends that are coming to visit, who hopefully do come to Charlie's or Firefly or whatever. but they're going to have friends and other people, and so keeping at least those public lots, so just the one that's here and the one that's behind Charlie's, just keeping both of those as a 2-hour only lot would at least guarantee that we have some hope of having some parking for some of our businesses, you know? I don't see why we couldn't at least just have the 2 lots be 2-hour parking, even if we didn't do the whole streets and all that. If the lots were 2-hour parking, for pretty much every business, whether you're chiropractic or chocolate or whatever, that 2 hours is perfect for most of our consumers.
Yeah, I would just say, like, along the lines of what Jeff's saying, we do need to keep some parking available for the people who live in the apartments over the businesses, who aren't going to want to move their cars every 2 hours.
Well, then maybe we can do some permanent parking or something?
Right,
for certain
like some
spots.
permitted parking or something. We just need to not forget about them in the process. And then that's going to be Jefferson Crossing residents too. I mean, they've got 60 spots underground. That means there's 10, 20, 30, 40, however many people looking for their second car spot and having the same issue. So, yeah, well, that's going to be an interesting process to watch.
Yeah, so we'll have, as part of that study Vanderwall does, it comes up here next. Should they'll look at where to put the 2-hour parking, that type of thing. So that
Okay.
makes some sense. And we have permission for the church lot now, right? Judy got that?
Yes.
So, I mean, to me, that's a perfect place, at least short-term, to have employees and business owners go park there. That would open up a ton of spots.
It's surprisingly few spots for how many employees there are.
Everyone counts.
What I was gonna say,
It's on
I
that
like the
handout.
idea of making sure there's proper, or some signage and potentially, I don't know how we would do lights, but so people walking from the church parking lot to the downtown area, because I know that's, being able to find it is a thing, and then being able to get to your business, the
Yeah.
businesses after you've parked is a thing, but for me, walking on a lighted street is important, so I always look for that.
Yeah, I like that you have lights on Elm
People
Street.
are
and-
willing to walk as long as they know where to go and how to get where they're going, and they feel safe doing it.
Yeah.
And I will say one last thing about the safety thing. I know Oregon's a safe place. It's a very safe place. Fitchburg's safe where I am at Liliana's, but I know it's safe. But you know, when you walk down Main Street and then you go under Jefferson, in terms of having my employees park there, one of the things that's hard is we're usually the last people to leave Oregon. So Oregon is a very safe place, and I feel safe. But I have 25-year-old, younger people who don't necessarily feel as safe walking down and then taking a left and not being visible when it's 2 o'clock or 2:30 in the morning, or after bar close. So I don't mind ever parking wherever, but to ask some of my staff to do it, where again, I'm sure nothing bad will happen to them. We've got a great police force here, but there is that feeling of what if, which I don't want my staff to have either. So there's just that too.
Yeah, we'll have, in part of that study, we'll be looking at lighting also. I
Sure.
think that's important on Jefferson, South Main, and Elm Street, so.
Okay,
we'll
cool.
look at that too. Yeah,
Thank you.
good. Thank you. Anyone else? Business owners, something new to add? Okay. So the next thing, we have the letter in our packet from Sue Berge. For those watching, it's online. You can see it in our packet. She mentioned a number of things that have come up already, but also that she's been dealing with this for a long time as a downtown business owner. So I do feel the inertia is there now to make some changes with the downtown stuff. So, item 3, review of new information from businesses. Anything additional to add on that? That also is in our packet, and I think was very helpful. Okay. And we did public comments. So we'll go to item 5, board discussion. Any further discussion from the board at this time? Okay, seeing none, we have a recommended motion, request a proposal from Vanderwall and Associates for designing downtown visitor wayfinding signs, a map showing suggested location for placing both the wayfinding signs and public parking directional signs, and analysis of required parking spaces in the downtown area.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Is there a timetable for completing this study?
Well, first we have to get the proposal from Vanderwall.
Okay.
I mean, basically, all this motion is asking me to ask Mike to prepare the proposal, and then I'll bring that to the May meeting, and then
Okay.
you'll vote on it. And then there'll be a timeline in there, Jerry, probably.
Okay, very good.
Most likely, yeah.
I think that's something that everybody would like to
I'll
hear
make,
about.
I mean, typically they do that, but I'll make sure it's in
And
there.
then what is the schedule, or is there a schedule for adding those 2 handicap spots in the village lot?
We will have to,
Well, we're just gonna map it out
Yeah.
and get the dimensions on it, and then if we can do it, we'll bring it before the board, just approve it, and then simply just grinding away what's there and the paint that's there, and then repainting.
What's your best guess?
We could get that done by midsummer.
Very
That's not
good.
a very
Okay.
hard project. yeah.
All right. And then what about, I heard about wayfinding signs.
that's part of the
Study?
proposal from Vanderwall.
Okay.
But my idea is that I'll get the proposal from Mike to do both things. Both ideas. If the board approves it, then we'll get a timeline from Mike, and then Mike, even though Mike has a lot of Monday night meetings, I'll make sure that when he's done with his proposal, with his study, excuse me, that he's here to present it to the public and to the board.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll probably actually, also, I think I'm gonna run it to the plan commission as well.
What is the completion date for Jefferson Crossing? When will it be occupied?
7/1, July
7/1,
1st.
okay.
People are moving in July 1st.
First occupancies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this study will be done after that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's probably okay. Because then we'll know what that's going to do to our downtown parking too. Or have
Well,
a good idea.
it won't be full on July 1st.
No, but
It'll be, right now, Brett's very happy that they have 21 apartments already rented, which is fabulous.
thank you.
Other questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, we have the motion second for requesting a proposal from Vanderwall for design downtown visitor wayfinding signs, a map showing suggested location for placing both the wayfinding signs and public parking directional signs, and an analysis of required parking spaces in the downtown area. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for your participation. We appreciate it, and also your reasonable approach.
Thank you.
Okay, item B, Highlands of Netherwood project from Forward Development. Discussion of possible board action. Consideration of accepting bike trails through Highlands of Netherwood as public trails. Recommend a motion. Village Administrator and Director of Public Works recommend designated trails in Highland of Netherwood as public trails.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
So Jeff and I talked about this for a while, and we had to think about this for a little bit, because we actually don't need to add any more duties to the public works staff. However, it's ironic that we approved and adopted the Park and Rec plan for the village, and in there, it talks about adding additional bike trails to the village. And also, this trail system will connect to a village trail system on CC, thank you, Jeff, and also on Netherwood at some point. So after Jeff and I talked about it and weighed the pros and cons, we think we should make the system in there a public system. Except the ones in the Bay Homes, right, Jeff?
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. There's a few small
Yeah.
private ones that are right in people's backyards. One of the things we were going back and forth on is, of course, like Mike said, we're not anxious to go out and have to start to maintain something new, but that's as we grow as a village, that's what we will be taking on more of everything, roads and everything else. But, we see an eventual connection to the north that would go right into the
The Rotary Bike
Rotary
Trail.
Bike Trail, that's about a half a mile to the north here, and ideally it'd be connect all the way to the south, eventually through Bergamont in that area, and if Phil Peterson's land develops, and we want to make sure that we maintain that and keep that as public, just so that a homeowners association couldn't get tired of maintaining it and convert it to private, or, convert it to the lot lands or something like that.
So do you envision that being paved?
Yes, it would be paved.
What's the distance in,
Well, this is a half mile from north to south right along here.
yeah, but, I mean,
And I'd guess, and by the time we add all the paths in, the park area here, I think I want to be kind of clear is, this isn't guaranteeing that we're going to have these plowed and snow-free and ice-free year-round. I think that's something we'll continue to do, to continue to evaluate based off of staff that we have and equipment that we have, and also use. you know, right now, we do keep Keller Alpine Path plowed because it gets a lot of use, but we're not plowing the 3 miles of rotary bike path out to Fish Hatchery.
That's right.
So, you know, and maybe we will it someday. Maybe we'll do it for 20 years, stop doing it,
Well,
get
you
50
know what?
emails, and then start doing it again. I don't know.
Well, maybe at some point, if the association that is there really want to use the trail, they could also hire someone to clean, mainly the north-south one too. That's a possibility, I thought, Jeff. So, I mean, you know, they could participate in helping maintain it.
Will it connect with the Hermson property then eventually?
Yes, it will, yep. Yeah,
Well,
Jeff?
on good snow days, that's excellent cross-country ski
Yeah,
trails.
yeah.
Exactly.
Right,
I mean,
yes.
like May or?
Mid-April.
Mid-April.
Just the end of the year.
Right.
What kind of wax you use on mid-April?
Yeah. So, I mean, we think it's an exciting subdivision, and we think it's gonna bring residents to the village, and having a bike trail system through it, you know, that eventually will connect up into the Rotary Trail, which will eventually connect up into the Badger State Trail, and the whole Madison system is just a plus. It really is, in my opinion. So, like I said, we weighed the pros and cons, and if the board's in agreement, we think we should make them public.
Okay. What is the estimated completion date of this?
Well, phase one, which is, they're gonna do the north side, Jerry,
Yeah.
that they wanna actually start, turning the lots over to developers in August.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's, they're they're trying to move quickly here.
So that'll be part of the 19 budget then?
Well, I mean, then they're gonna be, well, they're gonna install the trail.
Oh, they are?
Oh, yeah, that'll be part of the.
It's all developer cost.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I should have said that at the beginning. Thank you for asking that. Yeah, they'll basically, it'd be like a detention pond, Jerry. They'll build the pond, and then they'll dedicate it to the village. Yeah.
And I don't know, I mean, we don't necessarily need a formal action on this tonight. We're looking for direction because we're just in discussions with the developer with respect to their plat and the development agreement, and we just need direction on whether the board's comfortable with this as something that we'd be taking on as a piece of public infrastructure, that north-south bike path through the development.
Well, we're even saying the small one on the right side there too.
And that one
We're just not gonna be going into the Bay Homes area down here on the southwest corner.
Well, I think it's kind of neat that it is in, close to Alpine Meadows Park, and that bike trail.
Right, so actually, what we want to do eventually is, if Jeff could show CC here. So, thank you, Jeff. So the trail right now ends right there, thank you, Jeff. So we actually have the funding, right, Lisa? In that account, we've been collecting money from developers for 18 years. We actually would have the ability to fund that and put a connecting bike trail on CC. So it's pretty cool.
How far out?
All the way out to Jefferson Crossing. All the way out to the, all the way out to the end of on Jefferson.
Western boundary there.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Highlands of Netherwood subdivision, I call
So
it.
that green line that runs to the middle of the park, that will be paved also?
Yes.
Yes, yep, yep. Every trail in there will be paved.
So it looks like that's going to add quite a bit of distance to the paved trail in Alpine Meadows Park.
Correct.
So the idea is that you live in the subdivision, you would be able to come down, hit CC and ride on a very safe 10-foot trail all the way into the downtown part of the, or into the park, or however where you want to go.
Okay, very good.
I better get some more bike cops up and around.
Yeah.
Get in shape, right, Brian?
That's right.
A lot of people don't realize we have this connection too. This is behind the Presbyterian Church. This has been a trail to nowhere for, well, since the church was built 10 years ago, 8 years ago.
Yeah, maybe 8 years ago.
And now with the completion of Cassandra Way, that empties out onto here. It'll be paved this year. That comes down the street, and then there's an actual crossing and addition to the trail over here.
Is that section to the east of the Presbyterian Church, is that public right of way?
How you doing?
That's public, yes.
It is?
Yep.
The developer still has to complete it. He didn't complete it in the spring, but just alerting the fact that he has to complete it. I'm sorry, he didn't complete it in the fall, excuse me. He has to complete it this spring.
That's exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great connections.
Getting totally used.
Further questions, discussion, comments? So we have motion second for the village administrator and director of public works. Recommend designate trails in Highlands of Netherwood as public trails. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Item 2, discussion and possible board action on resolution number 18-10, a resolution by the village board of the Village of Oregon offering general support for the annexation and development of a residential subdivision to be known as the Highlands of Netherwood. Recommend a motion to approve resolution number 18-10.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
That was easy.
Item C, the private property drainage issues will come back to us on May 7th. Item 9 is Personnel, Public Safety, and Protection Committee. I'll turn it over to Trustee Carpenter.
This is from our March 26th Personnel, Public Safety, and Protection Committee meeting. We discussed the ordinance, the third draft amending various sections of the Village of Oregon Code of Ordinances relating to animals, and discussed regulating chickens and honeybees in the village. At the committee level, I moved and seconded by Brett Howard to recommend to this village board the approval of the third draft and to direct the village attorney to draft language to the zoning code to allow for keeping of chickens and honeybees as an accessory use. And this was similar to a sample ordinance from Shorewood Hills. So I will make this motion.
I'm sorry, Trustee Carpenter,
Oh,
could
yeah.
I just interject?
Yeah, yeah.
We're trying to kind of separate the ordinance that you have in front of you tonight, which does not deal with bees and chickens.
Okay.
And so if I could request that you limit your motion to approving that ordinance as one item, and then the second piece of this discussion would be to discuss whether to move forward with the chickens and the bees.
Is this the first reading, Matt?
This would be, okay, so this would be
Yeah,
a first reading of ordinance 1804.
Yep.
Okay. So I would make a motion
Excuse me.
that we do a first reading of ordinance number 1804.
I'll second that. And Matt, would you clarify what you're telling us?
Yeah, okay, so the
Does anybody else
ordinance, ordinance 1804 is limited to making some changes to the village's ordinance relating to animals. The original kind of impetus for doing work on this was to deal with dangerous dogs in particular. And so the focus of this ordinance 1804 has nothing to do with chickens and bees. This is not about that. This is really just making some changes to the ordinance to give the police department authority to deal with concerning dangerous animals that we don't currently have.
Okay.
I'd be happy to address any more specific questions.
So when are we going to deal with an ordinance regulating chickens and bees?
So that's for also on for discussion tonight.
Correct.
Is whether you want to move forward with that.
I just put that was the motion that came, Matt's right, we should separate them out, because all we're really doing is having the first reading on the ordinance, and then a general discussion about chickens and bees with the
Got it.
board. Yep.
I finally have it.
Hold on tight, Doug.
Yeah, look out now.
Okay, any further questions on this?
I just have one question. I noticed one of the animals that they're not allowed to keep was, it calls out poultry specifically, and since we're going
Yeah,
to be
we-
dealing with bees and chickens next, is that?
Right, so if the board directs us to move forward with an ordinance that would authorize chickens, poultry, then we'd have to make that change at that time. We'd take that off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? So we have a motion and a second to hold the first reading of ordinance 1804, and then direct the village attorney to prepare the necessary ordinance.
Nope, just 1804,
Okay, that stops right there. We're not directing you to do anything?
not yet.
Okay.
Comes soon.
So we have that motion second on ordinance 1804. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now what are we doing?
Now we're going to talk about the next item that's in the packet. It's just, there's a sample ordinance, well, there's a couple emails from people.
Yeah.
I included them. And then there's, from the March 26th committee meeting, there was some sample ordinances from Shorewood Hills, about chickens and bees.
Yeah.
And so, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, so the question is, we can move forward with drafting ordinances for the Village of Oregon that are similar to this, if that's what you want us to do. But we thought, we weren't quite ready with it yet, for one thing. And so we thought, let's still at least bring the issue to the board to find out whether the board wants us to keep moving forward with that on chickens and/or bees. You know, the answer could be yes, we want one, not the other, or we want both, or either way. So if we do move forward with the development of an ordinance that would authorize keeping chickens and authorize keeping bees, I think the way we're looking at structuring this would be an amendment to the zoning code. So the process would be to draft the ordinance, schedule for a public hearing at the Plan Commission, have a Plan Commission recommendation, and bring it back to the board for a final decision. So the question is, do you want us to move forward with that process?
I'll make a motion that we move forward with that. The chickens and bees are in the village, so I think we should regulate them.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Questions or discussion? Okay, we'll motion second to move forward with the chicken and bees ordinance. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 8, approval of minutes. There are none before us tonight. Item 9, approval of vouchers. We have vouchers tonight.
I didn't realize that you were just
Oh.
flipping right through the
Okay.
thing so quickly. Can I go ahead?
Yeah.
Andrea? Okay. My name is Patty Subak, live at 377 East Lincoln Street. Thank you for allowing me to speak. In 2015, I became a volunteer at a local farm sanctuary. I've really come to appreciate and enjoy chickens. Because of this, I'm really concerned with the idea of backyard chicken keeping or urban farming in our village. I do not doubt the good intentions of those who would like backyard chickens. I doubt that people have the knowledge, experience, or expertise to properly care for the chickens. If you'd asked me prior to my volunteer experience if I wanted chickens in my backyard, heck yeah, you know? I would think it's much more humane than factory farming. It looks good. Who doesn't like eggs? I never did get backyard chickens. Something with my husband, and when it gets cold, I want to bring them in the garage, and then I want to put a heater in there, but then it's a fire hazard, and then I want to bring them into the house because it's way too cold outside. Flash forward to December 2016, and there's a chicken in my house. But I won't be having any eggs because it's a rooster. The farm sanctuary barn is not heated. Chickens cannot tolerate temperatures in the 30s and below. So volunteers are asked to foster chickens through the winter. So, this is Crocus. This is who I had. Actually, I actually have him in my basement right now. Crocus was hatched in the spring of 2016 and surrendered by a first-time chicken owner as a factory mistake, or oops rooster, as they're called. There's a few things I've learned in the past few years. There are two paths for male chicks born into the egg-laying industry, because they're no use to the egg-laying industry. They're either chilled via gassing, suffocation, or they're thrown alive into a grinder to be fed back to the hens. Because determining the gender of chicks is not accurate at a day old, which is when they're checked and sent out, males might also be sent out as hens. The males that are mistakenly sent out as females become the victims of ordinances that ban roosters. Roosters are abandoned and dumped at rates that steadily increase when backyard chicken keeping ordinances banning roosters are passed. Life isn't a whole lot better for hens. Day-old chicks are packaged and sent through the mail with no food, water, or really protection from extreme weather. Chick loss is about 1% to 2% when they're going through the mail. It may not seem like a lot, but when there are millions being shipped, it adds up. Parents are even warned not to open the box of chicks in front of their children due to the possibility that some may have died during shipping. Before they were domesticated, selectively bred, and genetically altered, a hen would lay a clutch of 10 to 12 eggs a year. That's it. A century ago, they laid about 100 a year. Now they lay 250 to 300 per year. Physical toll is devastating. A majority of hens will die from reproductive disease by the age of 3. In fact, reproductive disease in hens is so common that hens are used for models for ovarian cancer research. Makes me cringe to think that I wanted backyard chickens and how much I did not know. It's easy to see the appeal. Large-scale operations confine hens to cruelly small spaces, cut off the ends of their beaks, and gas them when they're past their laying prime. In contrast, a backyard coop seems idyllic. People are led to believe they are doing something noble and sustainable by raising chickens in their backyard, but they're supporting the very same industry that supplies the major producers. Most ordinances inadequately address both human and animal health and welfare concerns. Many people are casual and careless with the lives of chickens. So what's life like as a backyard chicken? Today I just hopped on the Mad City Chickens Facebook site just to see what in the past couple months has been posted. 5 hens to give away. Need 2 roosters gone ASAP. Lost 9 chickens last month. My cat got 4 of them. The others just dropped over dead. Someone gave me a bag of feed that expired in January 2017. Can I still use it? Lost a bunch of chickens to a raccoon. 2 chickens on the loose on Milwaukee Street. Found one of my hens frozen to the ground. She'd been attacked, but whatever was trying to eat her couldn't get her under the door. Lost a chicken last night. Coop temperature was 23 degrees. Is that too cold? A few months ago, I closed up the coop and inadvertently trapped a possum inside and gnawed at 2 of my chickens' heads. It wasn't a pretty sight. Posts like this make me cringe. Having worked in clinical healthcare for 20 years, I can tell you that just as Dr. Google is not a substitute for the care and advice of a medical professional, backyard chicken keeping websites and Facebook chicken keeping groups are no substitute for education and the care and guidance of a veterinary professional. Last Thursday evening, April 12th, the Farm Sanctuary received a call regarding chickens that had been dumped. The caller witnessed 2 men get out of a car, toss chickens out, and drive away. 11 hens were rescued, most likely because their egg-laying days were over. They most certainly would have become victims of predators during the night. In pitiful condition, all the hens are infected with scaly leg mites, which cause pain and deformity in the legs and feet. In summary, although I am strongly opposed to an ordinance that allows backyard chickens, I respectfully request that if you do allow backyard chickens, that with the input of veterinary professionals and knowledgeable, experienced rescue groups and sanctuaries, that you also create strict regulations and controls that protect the health and welfare of the animals, promote the safety for the handlers and community. Thank you.
Thank you for the information.
Any questions?
What about bees?
What about bees? I couldn't get into bees. That is another thing. I'm not as familiar with bees. But working, volunteering at a farm sanctuary, it's like, using animals for anything. I'm more in the middle. I'm not a radical activist. I don't want to see animals abused. And part of me doesn't like putting chickens in the backyard where I have my dog. Because what's the difference then? Are chickens pets? Or are they production? Or what are they? And people know when a dog is tied outside in 0-degree weather, that's wrong. And they'll say something. But what about chickens? What does that lead us to when we put them in the same backyard? We have 2 levels of animals. I just think it's really open to.
Yeah, thank you. I think you presented some good points for us to consider as we proceed through this.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It's not
Thank
as
you.
easy as a coop in the backyard.
Yeah.
Which is what it looks like sometimes.
Do you live close to the chicken coop that's on the corner of Lincoln and Oak Street?
What about it?
There's a coop on the,
Mm-hmm.
you're familiar with that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Right. And you know what the thing
Is that your coop?
No, it is not.
Oh, okay.
No, it isn't. I love seeing those chickens. I did. I mean,
So do I.
But I see them outside the fence. There's no protection over the top to keep them safe from predators. I live on East Lincoln. I've seen plenty. I've had raccoons, foxes, and they have to be so secure. And it's really hard to do that. And it costs a lot of money. People think chickens, I could buy a chick for 50 cents and I get free eggs.
Yeah.
Not by the time you set up a good, strong coop and feed them high-quality feed. It's not. It'll take you years to recoup your costs.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 10, we actually just started with. Community input. Anybody else wish to address the board?
I forgot 9.
Oh, I thought we did that. I checked it off.
Well, okay.
It's way too late. Got me, look at me.
Can I just say while the person is here
Yeah.
with chickens? So I've been asked to draft an ordinance, and I'm going to follow a model. Well, either we have one already drafted. Does Mike deal with chickens? Or do
It
we-
does, but I haven't read it.
Yeah.
I gotta be
So
honest
we've
with you.
got one model that's already been drafted. We've got another model from another community. So that's going to go through a process where certainly you and other members of the public will have the opportunity to see it, comment on it. I don't know anywhere near as much as you know about chickens.
I didn't either till a couple of years ago.
Yeah. So we'll present something as a draft, as a working draft, and then we'll see where it goes. Sounds like the potential for a lot of things that one could get into, but then that leads to lots of questions about how you go about enforcing it. So.
Okay, we'll go to item 9, since you all would like to do that one, I guess.
Well, we don't want to have to have another meeting tomorrow night.
Approval of vouchers. We have vouchers tonight, the amount $144,096.65 for approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Questions?
Jerry?
No, I don't have any. Believe it or not, I looked twice.
Okay, here we go. We have motion second to approve vouchers, it's $144,096.65. Roll call, please.
Staton?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Grenier?
Yes.
Carpenter?
Yes.
Grunhauer?
Yes.
Boudreaux?
Yes.
Ballard?
Yes.
Thank you. That carries. Item 10, community input. Anybody else wish to address the board tonight? Okay, we'll turn the page to proclamations and announcements. Item A is board comments. Any board member have comments to make tonight? It's quiet over here. Staff comments?
The dates for open book are on the agenda, started today, and tomorrow, and then also Wednesday.
I'm going to read all these. Board review, Monday, May 21st, 4 to 6 p.m. Upcoming election dates, may impact future board meetings, August 14 and November 6. Upcoming meetings are listed for us. Please be sure and note those. So we go to item 12, communication and miscellaneous business. Item A, review of 2018 impact and connection fees and building permits. Any questions on any of these? Questions? None? Okay. Item B, discussion and possible action regarding 2018 farm lease between Village of Oregon and John and Gary Dorfer. Recommended motion is to approve that lease for Outlot 1 and Outlot 2 in the Village of Oregon for $150 per acre.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions?
This is just a renewal, basically, isn't it?
Correct.
We've dealt with them for years and years.
Yep.
on
Correct.
this land, yeah.
Out by the bike path.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. Other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, status of race day event on Sunday, June 10th, and possible board action. So what do we have
But
here?
we thought rather than inviting him here, Rich, if they just wanted to do the same thing once through.
Yeah, you know, we've worked with this triathlon for the last couple of years, and they used to go through the village kind of both ways, and that kind of was a problem one year, and it also affected some of the local churches because this happens on a Sunday morning. So last year, we worked out a new plan with them and a route that kind of circumvented the majority of the village, and they pay for the police presence and the overtime, so they work with chief. The only thing I added was an additional officer necessary at Market and Netherwood.
But you did so well last year, too.
Yeah, that was me last year. I'm not going to be here this year, but typically what we'll do is, isn't it obvious? I'm going to be out on the course.
Right.
But we'll actually have the sign, our message board signed beforehand, so we'll have some warning to it. But they're through. It's always on graduation weekend, but they're literally through by about 10:30, I think, 10:30 or 11.
Yep. Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, they've been good. They've cleaned up after themselves and cleaned up the streets and stuff that the bikers drop it.
Okay.
Gel packs and stuff like that.
Are there questions? Okay. Takes us to item D, discussion possible action, wastewater treatment plant sludge mixing pump replacement. Recommended motion is to approve replacing that in the amount of $13,265, funding to come from the wastewater treatment plant equipment replacement fund.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is just another, as our equipment ages, and this is a pump and a sludge mixing tank. I did ask a couple questions today of Cal just to make sure, I said, well, is there, are there other pumps that we would use or other manufacturer pumps? And he said if we did that, of course, we would have to be changing the piping and kind of the configuration. This is a replacement pump. We've worked with William Reed Limited for a very long time. Honestly, $13,265 is a very fair price for a mixing pump, and I don't believe it to be a high or anything like that. Our equipment replacement fund is precisely for this, so I just recommend approval.
Yep, thank you. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item E.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Jeff. Discussion of possible action, downtown parking lot on Jefferson Street. Engineering for electrical project rebid and easement. Recommended motion is to approve amendment number 1 from MSA Professional Services in the amount of $5,920.
So move.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, last week we had, at our last meeting, we just had the notice to, or the approval to go ahead and rebid this project. This is just the engineering to be able to support that, as well as we had them prepare some additional easement language for the BMO Harris property previously. So that's what this is covered under, just for additional engineering.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item F, Police Department monthly reports.
Yep, you'll see on here the active investigations, canine activity, and the summary of major crimes. You'll notice that we're still arresting people who are driving while intoxicated. There's still a fair number of domestic disturbances on here, among other drug incidents. So, any questions on those? Anything you'd like me to explain?
Well, it's very interesting looking through this.
I know every time I bring them, you're interested, Jerry.
I know I am. Guess I had no idea this stuff was going on.
Especially at that 459.
That drug house at 456.
456, yeah, that's what it is.
Not going to live that one down, are you?
Lots of problems there.
That was you, Jeff. Don't look at Doug.
Doug keeps setting me up over here. I'm going to miss that.
We'll get Amanda trained.
Oh, Amanda's been coming. She's all set.
Yeah.
RCI is a tough place.
Okay, any questions on those reports? Thanks, Chief. We do appreciate that. That's good for us
Yeah,
to see.
absolutely.
It's good for folks online to see those too, so.
And it's good for people to see that, we do have our fair share of activity
Yeah.
here. Even though we are the third safest city in Wisconsin,
Yeah.
we still deal with a lot of issues.
Is that a true statistic?
Yeah.
What's it?
Depends
according
on who you go with, but it's from Safe Cities, I think, this time, or something
Yes,
like
it
that.
is.
So-
Are you saying you think he'd lie?
Well, no, I wouldn't say that.
I appreciate that.
I just thought he might have just made that up.
Last year, we were the fifth. This year, the third. It kind of fluctuates every now and then.
Who were the first two? What are number 1 and 2?
So, Wanakee was number 2, I believe,
Yeah.
and some hyphenated. I don't remember.
I remember one key number 2. I don't remember what number 1 was. Yeah.
Do you use that statistic in recruitment or in any other way?
It's on our website, absolutely. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Is it in the?
There you go.
Okay, item G, Historic Preservation Awards at the April Wisconsin Association of Historic Preservation Commissions Annual Conference. Randy Glish will receive the Commission's 2017 Historic Preservation Advocacy Award, and the village will receive the Commission's Restoration and Rehabilitation Award for the Pump House and Tin Man Tower project. So, good for Randy for getting that done. He did a great job. We appreciate it very much. Okay, item 13, report of committees. Item A, April 5th, 2018, Oregon Fire Area EMS Commission meeting. Discussion and possible action, opportunity to purchase a new ambulance at the significant discount. Jeff,
I can
you're
take
on.
it. So as you all might or might not know, we got a brand new ambulance last year, and we had some major electrical problems with that ambulance. And at the end of the day, it was determined that we were going to return the ambulance to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer took full responsibility, gave us a brand new ambulance the exact same kind, outfitted the exact same way to use for the time, the year that it took for them to get in a new ambulance, put it on chassis, and outfit it the way we wanted. So what we have in our possession right now is that ambulance, that brand-new ambulance that we were given as a loaner to use. It's currently outfitted exactly as we need, and our ambulance is finished. And so Deemers is ready to deliver our actual ambulance back to us. So similar to the fire engine situation, we have an opportunity here to save a significant amount of money as a village, on the order of $50,000. If we decide, instead of returning the ambulance, to keep it. And then we would wind up with 2 new ambulances and basically be done talking about ambulances for 8 to 10 years. If the village decides that it's not interested, that'll be taken into consideration heavily, because the village is about 63% of the district.
Yeah.
So if the village isn't willing to partner, it really affects greatly whether the towns of Dunn and Rutland and the town of Oregon are going to be able to accept this ambulance. My recommendation would be, sometimes you just gotta strike while the iron's hot, and this, I think, is one of those times. If we don't buy this ambulance today for $165,000, we're gonna be coming back in no more than a couple of years, and it'll be about $230,000 at that time, and then it'll be needed. Then we won't have an option.
Why don't you come?
So, the only other suggestion that I would make is, beside that, I recommend we purchase this ambulance at the $160,000 range. Chief is still working out, he's still negotiating, and he thinks he can get a slightly better price, but we'll see. Remember that next year, we're gonna need SCBA's, which are the breathing apparatus for the firefighters. That's gonna run about $200,000 or so to the village. That's gonna be our end. No, wait, it's not, that's the full cost.
That's total, yeah.
And then the engine, we're proposing in the 2019 fiscal year, that'll run about $220,000.
Yeah.
If we decide to go that direction, that's another one of those where we've got amazing opportunity to get what probably would be a $300,000 engine, $400,000 engine, maybe even $500,000 engine for half that, if we purchase it now, because it's available from another municipality. If we don't purchase it now, we're gonna be back talking about the full purchase price in a few years. So altogether, the village would be looking at 60% of $580,000 next year. The ambulance also would be pushed out until 2019. We wouldn't have to pay for it this year. So it'd be about $365,000 in borrowing if we decided to do all 3. The SCBA's are non-negotiable, we have to do that.
Yeah.
The engine, a couple of years if we don't do it, and the ambulance, a couple of years if we don't do it. Is that a good enough overview?
Yeah, thank you.
So you're looking for action tonight, yes or no on that?
I think so, you know, and
Chief's got a nice letter up there.
yeah. And, you know, I think if I remember correctly, in our 5-year, you know, remember last August when Lisa and I gave the board the capital improvement plan, and we were allocating money for the, you know, buildings and all this. I think we had in there, I think either $400,000 or $500,000 for the fire district. And I mean, and that was a number I will tell you, I came up with. I thought I was trying to be fair to the district. So everything you're saying, if I'm remembering that correctly, you know, it falls within that allocation. And I think if you're saying that, we'd be buying another ambulance anyways in a couple of years, and if you can get this one at such a good discount.
Yeah, I think at that time,
Seemed to
you
make
might have
s-
just been thinking about the engine that was in the capital improvement plan, because at that time, we were thinking we were getting a federal grant for the SCBA's.
Right.
But we didn't get that.
Okay. I was
So
gonna
now
ask
we're
you that.
talking about SCBA's, an engine and an ambulance for that
Yeah.
same
And Glenn's been keeping me posted on that.
400,000.
Yeah. I think I was doing, it was from 18 to, or 17 to 22 or 2023, it was $6.8 million of debt falling off, and I was just trying to take and allocate that and to try to be fair, you know, like to Public Works and to police, and I came up with, I think it was 400,000 or something like that to the fire district, so.
For 19?
For that 5-year period.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at that time, you expressed concern that it wouldn't be enough. I said, well, at this point, it was a placeholder in there.
Good placeholder.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I have a question. Did I misunderstand you, Jeff, or are one of our district partners trying to determine whether they're going to contribute at all?
No, the way that this lays out, Jeff had it up a minute ago.
You want the lower sheet on that?
Yeah, any district, any fire EMS district expenses, the village pays 63%.
I know, but I
So
thought
it's
I
just
heard-
that if we're not willing to do it, pretty much that kills the deal, because between the other 3 municipalities, they can't come up with our piece.
So was this in the budget this year?
So first of all, these will be 19 expenses,
Okay.
and they're capital expenses. And so they're not in the budget this year, and they wouldn't be in the budget because they'd be borrowed.
Well, we still put sometimes
still be in the
a
budget.
number in the budget for potential
So it
borrowing.
passed through.
But it wouldn't be, this wouldn't be shown up anyways, but you're saying it's a 19 expense anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I misunderstood. I thought one of our members is balking at doing this.
No, I think the members are all, from the feedback we got, Darlene and I, at the meeting, I think the members are all very much in favor of this.
Okay. So are we keeping the old ambulance?
So the old ambulance would be sold at auction,
Okay.
and we'd get maybe $10,000-$15,000 for it.
And what's the life? You have any idea?
Life on an ambulance, I feel like it's 8 to 10 years.
Something like that.
Yeah, okay.
Jeff, do you know when we have to be making payment in 19 for the ambulance? You know,
I don't. I think they were just generally penciling January, February,
yeah, so.
first quarter.
So we may actually, Lisa and I are doing the 2018 borrowing, and we're actually going to try to bring that to the board on May 7th. We may actually borrow for this in 18 because we wouldn't do our 19 borrowing until next spring of 19. So we may just borrow the money anyways and just have it and then pay for it in 19. Because we have 3 years to use the money then, so.
So what's this gonna do to our budget?
It's going to kill it, and it's going to spike the taxes.
That's what I wanted to hear. That's exactly what I wanted to hear.
I'm going to start coming up with a new line here.
That's going to be in the
Taxes
Observer
are-
Wednesday.
Maybe you
Woodrow
better
says
keep
it's going to
coming.
kill the budget and
Yeah.
spike the
Jerry,
taxes.
taxes
Be a
are going
headline.
down.
Taxes are going
Yeah,
down.
I'm gonna say, that's what I'm gonna start saying. No, I can't say this one purchase is gonna, like I said, we're trying to allocate,
I know, you gotta look at the whole package.
well, we're trying to be fair and allocate money to each department, and I think this is a fair purchase for the district, in my opinion. Again, in that scheme of that 5-year, 6-year period, I think it's a fair purchase.
Okay, so Jeff's wrong?
Again,
Get that in the record, would you?
it's just a footnote on all the minutes, all the agendas.
Yeah,
No, I
Asterisks.
think it's a good deal, actually, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And matter of fact, my hat's off to Chief. Chief he's a wheeler dealer like I've never met, and this guy's always working the networks,
Yeah.
and he's figuring out what's coming up.
Yeah.
I wish he was here to take the credit.
He
And he
was-
puts these deals together, and I just can't believe some of the deals he puts together, but it's because he's so well respected.
Yeah.
And there's a real brotherhood of firefighters, and they're always looking to help each other out, and
John, we appreciate it.
I will.
So we need a motion, right,
We do.
on that, to,
I'll make the motion.
I'll second
I'll
it.
second that.
Let Darlene do it.
Darlene, do it? Okay.
Yeah.
okay, we have a motion second on the ambulance as described by Jeff. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Item B, April 5th, 2018 Planning Commission meeting. Trustee Carpenter, please.
This is discussion and possible action regarding a comprehensive plan amendment for Thompson Drive per Todd Nelson's request. This is a local resident, and he wants to build a duplex on a property that's currently zoned commercial, right?
Got it.
And it fits in with that new Thompson Drive, which is all duplexes. And so the planning commission had no problems with that. So my motion is that we proceed with comprehensive plan amendment for Thompson Drive with Todd Nelson reimbursing the village for the process, estimated cost of $5,000.
I'll second.
Thank you. Questions or discussion?
The property faces North Main Street?
No, it faces Thompson Drive.
I'm getting there. You're
Jeff's gonna show it to you.
It's behind The printing place,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so this
The
is,
old postal
yeah,
net.
this
Yeah,
is the
postal
printing
net.
place, this is the hairstyle place, this is the Moonstar Chinese. So the lot they're talking about is right here.
And just so you know, Jeannie, Mike Stabney always has, he keeps like a running list of things that he wants to amend in the comp plan. So besides this, we'll probably add a couple little tweaks to it. Probably, for example, we'll probably add the Hermson property to the comp plan. So then the village will pay for that part of it, but Nelson's gonna pay for his share of renting. This is probably, it's a good 4-month process to go through, just to amend the comp plan.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thanks, Jeannie. Item 14, minutes not requiring action, Library Board minutes from March 14, 2018. Those are in the packet for those viewing. 15, unfinished business, none before us. 16, new business, approval of new operator's license approved by the Police Department at Mahen's Liquor, Gabriel Loftman, Stop and Go, Carrie Montgomery, and Headquarters, Cassandra Osman.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 17, list some future agenda items. And then we go to item 18. The board may meet in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 19.851E to discuss a TIP 5 request from Tycee and ground lease for a new youth center.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Red Howard,
Yes.
Staton,
Yes.
oh jeez, I lost my name.
Boudreaux? Yes.
Boudreaux, Boudreaux, Grenier,
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Got him. We'll go to closed session. We'll stay here. We'll adjourn from closed session.
It's okay to invite.